Shenzhen, China, for the Huawei and International Union for Conservation of Nature, the IUCN Joint Forum, Tech and Sustainability, everybody's included. My name is Harriet from Huawei's International Media Affairs Department. Whether you're joining us online or here in person, we'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you. I hope you enjoyed the trailer just now. Here at Huawei, we spent over 360 days filming, and the first episode is going live today. You can find it on Huawei's official websites and on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok. Now, before we begin, let's do some housekeeping issues. Please bear with me. So, first of all, note, this entire session is being recorded, and it's being recorded in 9 languages. So if you'd prefer to watch it in a different language, please go to the Huawei local site of your choice, local language site. You can also find it on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. For languages, we can watch it in English, Chinese, French, Arabic, German, Spanish, Russian, Italian, Korean, and Japanese. If you're here in Shenzhen with us, or you're joining us on Teams, you have a choice of English or Chinese. We're also delighted to be joined by our media friends from all around the world. So please do note that this is a public session. Now, during the speaker and panel sessions, if you're joining online, you will be muted. But please stay connected with us. Feel free to post your comments and ask questions in the chat box on Teams. Now, today, our forum will discuss some increasingly urgent and pressing issues around sustainability. While we may be seeing the emergence of a road to recovery, the world continues to deal with the disruptive impact of the pandemic. At Huawei, we believe in the power of ICT technologies to achieve greater sustainable development. Therefore, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Huawei Chairman of the Board, Dr. Liang Hua, to the stage. Thank you. Please.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to today's forum, Tech and Sustainability, Everyone's Included, hosted by Huawei and IUCN. Together, we'll explore the role that technology can play in driving sustainable development in a digital economy and how we can build a greener and more inclusive, intelligent world. Climate change has now become a huge roadblock for social development. We need to move faster towards low-carbon development and green growth models. We also need to protect the environment and promote green economic recovery. These are common goals shared by the global community. Technology can help. In particular, digital and intelligent technologies are playing an increasingly important role in this process. Huawei focuses on providing ICT infrastructure and smart devices. We are committed to bringing digital to every person, home, and organization for a fully connected, intelligent world. We use innovative technologies to enable green development, support environmental protection, and drive broader digital inclusion. We want to do our part to promote social progress and make the world a better place. That's how we drive sustainability at Huawei. We will first continue innovating to enable green development, support environmental protection, and fight global climate change. green and sustainable development has become a top priority in world economies. Carbon neutrality has become a globally recognized goal, kicking off a green industrial revolution across the globe. Nations and enterprises are investing more in clean and renewable energy and reducing carbon emissions as part of their efforts to address climate change. Today, digital technologies like 5G, cloud, and AI are pushing the digital economy into a new phase. We believe that a digital economy should first and foremost be a green economy. In essence, the ICT industry has been working to using less energy to transmit, process, and store more information. Take 5G as an example. Its energy consumption per bit is only 1/10 of 4G's, but it can provide 30 times the capacity. ICT technologies are important enablers for energy conservation and emissions reduction in other industries. For example, digital technology helps improve energy networks, making data a key resource in the energy internet. Now we can use bits to manage watts and data flows to optimize energy flows. This will make energy networks greener and more intelligent, reliable, and efficient. We have extensive experience in power electronics and energy storage. We have combined this with our technical expertise in 5G, cloud, and AI to develop our digital power business and provide power solutions for different industries. We will continue to promote clean electricity generation, help electrify the transportation sector, build green ICT infrastructure, and focus on intelligent energy storage. We will combine computing and electric power to drive the intelligent upgrade of the energy sector. We'll also use digital technology to help generate more electricity from renewable sources and optimize energy supply and demand models. This can help our transition to green energy sources, benefiting the entire energy sector and the world. As of December 2020, Huawei's digital power products and solutions have generated 325 billion kilowatt-hour of electricity from renewable sources and saved 10 billion kilowatt-hour of electricity. These efforts have resulted in a reduction of 160 million tons in carbon dioxide emissions. Technology can do more than just drive economic growth. Technological advances can help us better understand and protect nature, mitigate the impact of human activity on the planet, and help make the world a better place. Here are some examples. We have launched the Tech for Nature program with the IUCN. This 3-year partnership will pilot new and customized digital technologies to enhance the impact of conservation at flagship sites across 5 countries and develop innovative digital tools and solutions for more than 300 protected areas worldwide. Since 2019, we have worked with Rainforest Connection, a non-profit organization, to deploy solar-powered sound monitoring systems in forests around the world. The Nature Guardian system uses Huawei Cloud, AI, and wireless connectivity technologies to detect the sounds of illegal logging and alert local authorities so that they can intervene before it's too late. By the end of 2020, these guardians have been deployed in 18 countries across 5 continents, where they are helping local rangers and conservationists better protect nature. We believe that technology can drive greater digital inclusion. The digital economy has become the new engine of economic growth around the world. At Huawei, we want to create a positive impact with our technology, so we work closely with government, customers, enterprises, and non-profit organizations to give back to local communities. We have launched the Tech for All digital inclusion initiative to help bridge the digital divide and provide universal and equal access to digital services. In Europe, we have launched a StorySign app with local partners. Powered by AI, this app translates popular children's books into sign language, opening up the world of books to small children with hearing impairments. By the end of 2020, more than 70 different children's books were available on the app in 15 sign languages, including Libras, Spanish Sign Language, French Sign Language, and British Sign Language. In New Zealand, Huawei helped launch vehicle-mounted medical clinics called MyPods, powered by 4G Wi-Fi 6 and a dedicated cloud platform. Each MyPod can support remote real-time consultations with doctors and specialists and provide timely medical services for disadvantaged families. In Kenya, Huawei is working with UNESCO to convert cargo containers into mobile digital classrooms that provide digital skills training to teachers, women, and young entrepreneurs in remote areas. This will give them equal access to digital education resources. Through these efforts, the future of numerous young people will change for the better. In China, Huawei teams up with its partners to create multiple scenario-based distance education solutions using technologies like 5G cloud and AI, and this makes it easier for more people to acquire knowledge and skills online. We believe that digital talent will play a more important role in driving digital transformation and advancing the digital economy. Digital skills and literacy are not just the foundation for the digital economy, they have been deemed a basic human right by the United Nations. Since 2008, our Seeds for the Future program has been helping develop ICT talent in the countries where we operate, benefiting many people, and we have covered over 130 countries, benefiting a total of 1.54 million people with a total investment of over 150 million US dollars in this area. And today we're announcing our Seeds for the Future program 2.0 as part of our ongoing efforts to develop talent. We plan to invest 150 million US dollars in this program over the next 5 years, which is expected to benefit 3 million people. Moving forward, we hope more and more people and organizations will join our initiative and support our digital talent development programs. Open collaboration is the best way forward. So we hope that we're able to work closely with scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs from across the globe. Through joint innovation, we can better balance economic growth and environmental protection and promote green and sustainable development. Huawei is committed to working with its global partners for shared success. We will use innovative technologies to support environmental protection, drive broader digital inclusion, and promote greater sustainability. Together, we will build a fully connected, intelligent world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Liang Hua, for those inspiring words, and in particular, the wonderful news about the further investment in the Seeds for the Future program. Thank you. Now, I would like to welcome our partner for tech and sustainability, Everyone's Included, Director General of the International Union for Conservation of Nature, the IUCN, Dr. Bruno Oberle, who will be joining us online. First, let me just say a few words about him. Dr. Oberle took up this position last year after an impressive career spanning over 40 years. Dr. Oberle is a leading expert in the fields of sustainable management and green economy, and has explored and shaped the interface between environmental policy, economic development, and social equity from 3 different perspectives, including state regulator, entrepreneur, and scientist. Between 2009 and 2015, as State Secretary for the Environment and Director of the Federal Office for the Environment for Switzerland, he represented Switzerland in leading international institutions and international negotiations, playing a key role in the Global Environment Facility and in the establishment of the Green Climate Fund. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Bruno Oberle. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for your interest and participation in the coffee conversation today on tech and sustainability, everyone's included. It is my pleasure to meet with so many leaders from all over the world and to listen to your views and insights. Before I begin, I wish everyone safety and health in this challenging time. The global COVID-19 pandemic is a health crisis, but it is also an environmental, social, and economical challenge to the sustainable development of the world. What do we need for successful action to tackle these challenges? This is something IUCN knows well, taking advantage of our global network of over 1,400 members and over 18,000 experts worldwide. In the last more than 70 years, we have been working hard and trying to achieve our vision, a just world that values and conserves nature. Our Earth is under pressure. Our uncontrolled waste and consumption, rapid industrial development, our thirst for natural resources and infrastructure has depleted our lands and waters, accelerating biodiversity loss and climate crisis. That was exactly why in 1960, 60 years ago, we already alerted the world that climate change was a major emerging threat. In 1970, we developed the standard for protected areas. In 1980, IUCN firstly brought the term sustainable development to the world. In 1996, we recognized the importance of private in conservation, and in 2012, we launched the idea of nature-based solutions across the world. People need to develop and prosper, but also need nature and biodiversity for fundamental needs. The food we eat, the water we drink, the oxygen we breathe, and the beautiful sceneries we enjoy, they all come from nature. They are nature. Can we find a balance and harmony between humans and nature? Yes, we believe so, and technology can be an important part of the solution. It can help solve global challenges if used correctly and smartly. I wish to contribute to today's event by proposing 3 principles that technology should adhere to and deliver the deserved impacts for sustainability: accessibility, efficiency, and accountability. First, accessibility. How can we ensure that people have tools and infrastructure to access the technological solution they need? This includes access to telecommunications networks and digital infrastructures, allowing women in remote communities and protected areas to access information and opportunities that should be available to them. IUCN shares Huawei's vision of technology for everyone, supports the mission of giving people access to networks and development opportunity that should be available to everyone, to anyone in the world, no matter their wealth or educational background, their gender or age or race or nationality. It is a coincidence, but not a surprise, that the IUCN operates a program called Nature for All, which includes a program on digital access to support wider environmental education worldwide. The Nature for All movement is an inclusive coalition of partners who represent a variety of sectors: conservation, health, urban protected areas, communication, technology, education, arts, tourism, science, youth, women's organizations and networks, and more. Different sectors of society bring new insights and strategies to the goals of raising awareness and facilitating experiences and connections with nature. There are now 484 organizations from 81 countries around the world that are Nature for All partners. Access is a basic right we must all support. This is fundamental for Huawei visions And this is IUCN vision. The second principle is efficiency. Focuses on improving the efficiencies of resource use of human activities while enhancing the efficiency of conservation action. Technology can amplify positive impacts if we can use it to reduce resource and energy consumption by increasing the efficiency of production and consumption. Our today's event is a good example. Increase the efficiency in conservation action and decision making, which can be witnessed from all the stories and case studies that will be shared with you soon. For example, digital cameras trap technology has become an ubiquitous tool in ecology and conservation. They are routinely deployed in wildlife survey and broad spectrum biodiversity monitoring work. And they have been shown to be far more effective with some type of data collection than other means. Camera traps bring many benefits for evidence-based conservation decision making. They sample for long period of time, are relatively non-invasive, can record undisturbed behavior, produce verifiable data, and offer a highly repeatable method of data collection. The third principle is accountability. We rely on leaders at all levels and in all sectors to make responsible decisions, and technology allows us to ensure leaders make informed decisions, keep to promise, and deliver the best outcomes. For example, the Swiss National Park recently admitted to the IUCN Green List for its excellence in effectiveness has its own geographic information system, which not only provides data and maps for administration and communication, but is also of key importance for maintaining, saving, and analyzing the large amount of data that is being collected in the national park. Making this information accessible to supporting researchers, scientific collaborators, interested stakeholders, and public audience is one way of being accountable for the scientific data used to take decisions for the effective park management. It is so important for nature and the environment. We urgently need to use technology to inform better decision making, with more accountability that will lead to policies for a better planet. At the largest global conservation organization, IUCN contributes to most of the international conventions to protect our planet and make a better world. IUCN contributes knowledge to global studies and distills the expertise of our members and commissions into clear recommendation to global policies and for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Yet these recommendations are only as good as the science and data that underpins them. Technology is the key to unlocking the potential we have to deliver informed decisions and achieve sustainability impacts. Our speakers today will provide detailed and exciting examples of these three technology principles in action for technology and sustainability. I'm looking forward to listening to their excellent sharing. And I am also looking forward to the outcomes of the partnership between IUCN and Huawei under the theme of Technology for Nature to demonstrate to the world how technologies can support nature conservation at all levels on the ground, within conservation communities and across the globe. Once more, wherever you are, thank to all of you for being together with us via networks that are supported by technology. And only supported by technology can we deepen our impact and speed up our response to the world's environmental crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Oberle, for joining us from Switzerland to share these remarks and remind us just how urgently we need to refine humanity's relationship with nature. This afternoon, we are delighted to welcome two keynote speakers. First, I would like to welcome Ms. Irina Bokova, member of the board of the Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizenship and former Director General of UNESCO from 2009 to 2017. In addition to a distinguished political and diplomatic career in Bulgaria, her time as the 9th Director General for UNESCO had two firsts. She became the first female and the first Southeastern European to head the agency. At UNESCO, Ms. Bakova advocated for gender equality and improved education. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Bakova. Thank you.
Gender digital divide is even more alarming. This digital divide impacts women more than men. Women are less likely to have internet access than men, and this gap is widening. Women are now 4 times less likely than men to be digitally literate and represent just 6% of software developers. According to the World Economic Forum Global Gender Gap Index, published in 2016 and still widely globally quoted, 170 years are needed to close the economic gender gap. The gender gap is closely linked to the digital divide. If we double the pace at which women become frequent users of digital technologies, the workplace could reach gender equality by 2040 in the developed countries and by 2060 in the developing nations, much earlier than the current projections. The second point I would like to make is linked to the way technologies impact human activity and sustainability, most particularly education. I do believe that education stays at the heart of the Sustainable Development Agenda 2030, and it is embodied in goal number 4, promoting inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong learning for all. Equality of opportunities and equities are the foundations of this Sustainable Development Goal. China has strongly supported the United Nations and UNESCO's efforts to formulate this vision and to include ICTs as an important driver for development in the run-up to the adoption of the agenda. In 2015, China and UNESCO organized in Qingdao a major ministerial conference on the ICTs on the post-2015 education, in which I had also the privilege to participate. The Qingdao Declaration, adopted at this international conference, was the first global declaration on the role technology plays in education. The message was quite clear. Technology can bring about quality, quantity, inclusiveness, transformational message, and I would say bringing about knowledge-based societies, and also open the door for the lifelong learning for all. Access is definitely essential, but access must include investment in skills, in changed, relevant context, I would say in digital skills generally, and digital literacy. The important question in front of us today: how has COVID pandemic changed education? And did it change education forever? I'm one of those who believe that changes the coronavirus have caused are here to stay. There is a lot of research going on nowadays as to the lessons of COVID-19 on education. The World Economic Forum mentioned 3 ways the pandemic could reshape education, and I do agree with them. The first is bringing more innovation. The second is developing private-public partnerships that I believe are going to grow in importance. And the third is rebuilding resilience in education systems. There is a fourth one, unfortunately, that I have just mentioned. It is about a possible increase in the digital divide unless tackled seriously. At the same time, emerging technologies, robotics, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, nanomaterials, genomics, and biotech require change in the STEM curricula to provide learners with skills not only of developing new applications and products, but also of interpreting the effects of these technologies on society. It does require skills and knowledge for sustainable and, what is very important, also ethical use of science and technology. Let me also emphasize that technology by itself does not equal innovation. It is the use that people, women and men, make of technology that drives true progress. We must continue to do everything to ensure technological breakthroughs, but also that these technological breakthroughs are development breakthroughs. This goes beyond advocacy for expanding networks and services that open the path for access to information. This is about opening new paths to create and share knowledge, about widening opportunities, including for girls and women. Technology has become one of the main drivers of growth, but economic growth, important as it is, must be promoted in tandem with social and democratic objectives, especially when it comes to exclusion. The risk of some of being disconnected or unable to participate in the modern economy is now ever more acute in a post-COVID-19 world. To be truly empowering, new technologies must be inclusive, bridging gaps, not deepening them. The digital dividends will come if combined with skills, competencies, applications, services, and content that cross divides, not deepen it. New opportunities definitely must be available to all, to empower all, for the benefit of all. This, I believe, is the spirit of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which sets clear targets, and I quote from the agenda, to increase access to information and communication technologies, including universal and affordable access to internet in developing countries, to expand education and research, to enhance the use of enabling technologies, especially for women's empowerment, to bolster national science, technology, and innovation capacities. So, in the end, I'm confident that this is about opening new paths to create and share knowledge. This is indeed about opening learning opportunities, opening doors to lifelong learning. One of the important aspects of Agenda 2030, the goal number 4, and I would say already a necessity from the point of view of the new emerging economic landscape. It is about developing content that is local, multilingual, relevant. Technology can be powerful development multiplier, but this requires combined investment in access and skills and in content. We cannot just invest in technology. We must invest in ecosystems and in people. Supporting infrastructure must be accompanied by support to applications and services, relevant content, local skills, competencies, because the foundations of a true, a genuine human development are not technical. They lie with the human rights and dignity of every woman and man, and in their capabilities, and I would say in their talent, which is boundless. I'm confident these dialogues will bring many new ideas, many innovative solutions, and I wish you a lot of good luck. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you to Ms. Pekova for highlighting the challenge of the widening digital skills and global gender gap. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Dominic Huawei, Managing Director of the World Economic Forum, to give a keynote speech. Following a distinguished career in public service for the UK's environmental sector, he became Managing Partner of ERM. Most recently, he also served as Senior Director for the Head of Environmental Initiatives for the World Economic Forum. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Huawei. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Li Hua, and everyone at Huawei for the very kind introduction. Dr. Hua, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to take part in today's event on technology and sustainability, everyone's included. Thank you very much to the team at Huawei for organizing it. Huawei is a very important key strategic partner of the World Economic Forum and a key contributor to many of the World Economic Forum's global initiatives on technology, sustainability, and social inclusion. So thank you very much for your commitment and leadership. So let me start by saying that the topic of our event today could not be more relevant to the current global context. First, science clearly tells us that we are increasingly exceeding critical planetary boundaries. We are facing an unprecedented global twin crisis, a joined-up global climate and nature emergency, as our colleague at the IUCN set out. Second, the pandemic has not only taught us about the importance of intergenerational solidarity and social inclusion, but also about the role that mobile technologies play for monitoring, tracking, and managing a global health crisis in a socially responsible way. So, to live within the planetary boundaries, we must strive towards aligning our economic and social activities within the limits of the biosphere. The World Economic Forum's new Nature Economy reports, in fact, identified that more than half of the world's GDP is moderately or highly dependent on nature, and hence very exposed to the risk of nature loss. This means that business as usual is no longer an option. Instead, determined and transformative action is absolutely required this decade, by 2030, to shift towards a net zero emissions and a nature positive and a socially more inclusive world. Science is telling us loud and sharply and clearly that the time to act is now. The window of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius or less still remains open. There's still a crack there to get through. But the decisions we take today and the changes that we realize in this decade will bind us to a path for decades to come. The good news is that momentum has been building up over the last couple of years. President Xi's pledge in September 2020 to the United Nations General Assembly and recommitted at the World Economic Forum's Davos Dialogues in January to halve China's emissions peak before 2030 and to achieve climate neutrality before 2060 was a critically important signal to the world. The G7 countries recently committed to protect 30% of the land and ocean by 2030, paving the way for an international agreement later this year in Kunming, when nations will meet to agree goals to protect biodiversity as part of the very important United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity. And interestingly, in the private sector, at least 1/5 now of the world's 2,000 largest public companies have made net zero commitments. These companies together represent sales of nearly $14 trillion. So realizing such transformative plans really does make business sense. The Future of Nature and Business report, published by the World Economic Forum, estimates, in fact, that a nature-positive economy can unlock $10 trillion of business opportunities and create 395 million new jobs by 2030. Further research also shows that every dollar spent on net zero and nature positive activities, including ecosystem conservation and restoration, can generate up to $7 extra in the broader economy. It's a win-win-win if we get this right. And that is where technology, innovation, and successful youth engagement, as we've heard earlier, all play a key role to make these changes happen at the necessary speed and scale. And we do not lack good examples of successful and innovative technology solutions that are making a difference globally. Rainforest Connection, which we heard it, is a great example from Huawei of a social enterprise developing innovative monitoring solutions for stopping deforestation and illegal poaching. It upscales old mobile phones and develops smart bioacoustic monitoring solutions to detect illegal activities. With the Tropical Forest Alliance and the Trillion Trees platform, 1t.org, that the World Economic Forum hosts, the World Economic Forum is supporting forest conservation and restoration around the world. And I commend Huawei for your own leadership to support such innovative solutions like Rainforest Connection. Now, realizing circular and nature-positive cities is another key area of innovation. Young changemakers of the World Economic Forum's Global Shapers community have teamed up with our global circular economy innovation initiative called Scale 360 to accelerate the transition from linear to circular in their cities across 3 continents. The pilot initiatives applied safe and circular principles and 4th industrial revolution technology to food waste, clean air, single-use plastics, inclusive education, and regional coordination. We'll shortly be seeing a new cohort of cities launching this summer, for which the Beijing Global Shapers Hub is one of the finalists. Now, cities house over half of the world's population, and they generate over 70% of all greenhouse gas emissions. In addition to decarbonizing cities, we must reimagine cities as hubs also of nature-positive biodiversity, making nature the competitive advantage in attracting talent and investment to the world's major cities. To this end, the Government of Colombia and the Inter-American Development Bank and the World Economic Forum have launched Biodiverse Cities by 2030. This is a global initiative focused on developing resilient, prosperous, and equitable cities that live in harmony with nature. Mobile technologies are a key part of the enabling solution for realizing this vision of biodiverse cities around the world. During this decade of the 2020s, we therefore need to unleash an unprecedented mass movement to protect and restore the planet, including initiatives such as I've mentioned. An inclusive movement that better connects communities, innovators, and decision makers is vital. A movement that supports and empowers a new generation of ecopreneurs equipped with the right technical, business, and entrepreneurial skill sets to build profitable ventures that conserve and regenerate nature rather than deplete it. To surface, celebrate, and help scale such innovative solutions for sustainable development, the World Economic Forum has launched Uplink at the beginning of last year. Uplink is a unique global platform which crowdsources solutions from ecopreneurs and innovators who take action to address the world's most pressing sustainable development challenges. It is an open platform to run challenges, build global communities, and connect projects with investors, policymakers, and other key stakeholders. It is already engaging more than 25,000 users, and over 1,600 SDG solutions have been submitted. As a collaborative digital platform, Uplink offers opportunities to our partners like Huawei to support global SDG innovation via the World Economic Forum. Esteemed Dr. Liang Hua and colleagues from Huawei, I once again congratulate you on all of your important contributions to realizing a more sustainable and inclusive world. Global initiatives such as biodiverse cities, uplink, and other areas where we can apply fourth industrial revolution technologies to meet the SDGs is at the core of our global partnership and at the core of our relationship with Huawei. At the World Economic Forum, we very much look forward to continuing our collaboration with Huawei as a strategic partner and a key contributor of many of our sustainable development initiatives globally. Thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Warre, for telling us about Uplink in particular and the need for us to work together, connect communities, innovators, and decision makers. Now, this leads us nicely to our first panel for the afternoon, during which time we will be focusing on ensuring equal access to education in the digital age. 3 of our panelists will join us online. 2 of us are here in the hall today. So first I would like to invite Huawei Vice President, Public Affairs for Strategy, Dr. Renee Arnold, and Dr. Ellen Touchstone, Associate Dean for Responsible and Sustainable Business Education, International Business School, Suzhou, Xi'an Jiaotong Liverpool University. Please come to the stage. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Harriet. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Also, a warm welcome from my side. It is my pleasure today to moderate this panel on the topic of ensuring equal access to education in the digital age, a very timely topic, as I think every one of you will agree. So, first of all, let me thank again Ellen for being here in person, and then let me introduce the other panelists of today. We have Dennis Pamlin. He's Head of Mission Innovation, Net Zero Initiative, and Senior Advisor at Rice Research Institutes. We have Kulani Abendroth-Diaz. She's a behavioral scientist located in Paris. And we have Afke Schat, Senior Vice President, Global Government Affairs at Huawei, all of whom will be joining us online today to discuss this, I think, very timely and very important topic. Now, well, we've heard it before today, and I think we're all clear about the very severe effects that COVID-19 has had on the education space, on universities, on schools, but most certainly, and I think in particular on young learners, on the many people who are joining universities for education as well as schools. And here in particular, we find that sometimes the most vulnerable groups are the ones that are being hit hardest in this crisis. At the height of the pandemic, according to UNESCO, we had 1.6 billion young learners and children attending schools remotely. However, we also know that a lot of the 3.7 billion who are unconnected, in fact, the majority of them, are also from this group, from these young people and people under 25 years of age. So the gap here is, I think, quite obvious, and this is one of the topics that we would like to talk about today with our distinguished panelists. But I don't think we will stop here, but because we will also go deeper and look at the more subtle challenges that are there to access to education in this new normal as it seems to take shape. And last but not least, we will touch upon the importance of digital talent and cover the impact of digital technology on the broader development of education and how teaching materials are being delivered in this digital age. So it is my pleasure to first of all give the floor to Dennis, who will, I think, give us a quite broad overview of the fundamental issues that are going on, the challenges that we're facing, but also the potential that digital technologies have for education. Dennis?
For education. Dennis? Yes, thank you very much, and thank you, Huawei, for arranging this extremely important event. And I would just like to say a few words on the broader context of education, because very often we look at digital technologies as an opportunity for us to deliver certain more things or better things of what we already have. But the real power of digitalization lies in the potential of doing things in a fundamentally new way. I think in many ways we are spending too much time of making the equivalent of better typewriters or CD records in a time when we can provide streaming music. So it's really, or word processors. So the digital opportunities are usually much larger than we usually see. And I usually say we need to look at the education system from three perspectives: the how, the what, and the why. And usually we stay on the first one, the how, because the amazing opportunities that we've been discussing here to allow more people through digital opportunities to connect and to discuss and to be part of the global communities. And it's easy to celebrate that, but also to see the big challenge, digital divide that is really in front of us. But I would like to take a step back, because if we don't think about the what and the why, we lose the why. For all of humanity, we lived in a life of scarcity. Education was very much about learning to get more things in society. Now we actually live in a situation where more people die of too much to eat than too little to eat. And we have so much transportation that our roads are clogged, etc. So there's so many places where we should not look at more, but better. And it really, that's also connecting to the fact that much of the education has been very national and very regional. But we need global approaches to this, because there are two things that I think is converging here now, and Dominic from World Economic Forum was sort of alluding to that also. We have 11 billion people that will live on this planet. If we don't put the 11 billion people living good lives, and that's also where countries like India and China are so important, because most part of the West, we don't think global. We think very much about making our own countries more competitive, etc. But if we can't move people out of poverty, if we don't have a future where 11 billion people live good lives together, all other things do not really matter. And the other thing is that we have a global urgency where a number of trends, climate change being the most prominent, but biodiversity collapse is equally important, that we're really putting strain on this planet. So we need fundamentally changes in how we live our life and provide the needs. So that's where I think also the what comes in terms of that we need to move away from the old way of providing information and even look beyond knowledge on how we implement that. Because in a world filled with AI, etc., the human competitive advantage is on wisdom and creativity. So it's these three things then put things on a very, very different level. But that's also where the digital stakeholders have such an important role, and why I'm so happy that Huawei, having an origin in China and knowing the deep challenge that the world faces, but also part of the digital community, connecting and aiming to make sure that 11 billion people can move together and live creative lives. So that's the framing I would like just to put on the table, and really congratulate again that we have this very important event at this place where we can really reshape and take this COVID-19 situation that is horrible, but take the best examples of that and shape this new world that has an 11 billion filter for all of us, and thinking that we're trying to create this better world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for these enlightening framework insights that you just gave. And I think, Ellen, you actually have some quite interesting examples of sort of what Dennis just mentioned, the best possible solutions, and maybe also some stories about the challenges that you were facing as a first-hand, as a lecturer and a dean at a university in these really challenging times, right?
Yes, Exactly. I'd like to piggyback on what Dennis said in terms of leveraging technology for global, international. I'm the Associate Dean for Sustainable and for Responsible and Sustainable Business Education at the International Business School Suzhou at Xi'an Jiaotong Liverpool University, which is a joint venture university. We are inherently global. We bring East and West together. I think before COVID, the most educators, most educational institutions assumed that in-person education was the default. That's what we did. That's how education was delivered. And when COVID hit, sudden disruption, we had to be creative. We had to take the challenge of COVID and turn it into an opportunity. And I actually, as you said, I faced quite a few challenges. I was stuck in the United States. I had gone back for what I thought was a 3-week vacation and ended up staying there for 9 months. But our university, we already had an online learning environment, and we were able to leverage that and pivot very quickly to provide online education for our students. And, you know, just as I had gone home for the spring festival vacation, a lot of our international students had also gone home. So over the past 1.5 years, we've been delivering, excuse me, education to our students here in China, as well as our students internationally. Some of the examples that I wanted to share with you. Our students, we really like to give them experiential education. So we have our students involved in a lot of hackathons, group competitions. And one of those that we experienced, we provided for our students recently, was the San Marcos Sustainable Business Challenge. And we were able to bring together teams from 3 different universities on 3 different continents. So we had Xi'an Jiaotong Liverpool students, University of Liverpool students, as well as students from a university in Peru, all working together to create sustainable solutions for transportation issues in Peru. And our students really found that very, very rewarding, being able to work on an international team, even during this type of a crisis. Another example, we have a top-tier program at our business school, the International Business with a Language program, and one of the languages we teach is Spanish. So we recently were able to pull together a panel of CEOs, China CEOs, for major Spanish corporations to participate in a webinar for training our students, providing information about their future employment. And you know, it's asking a CEO to come to our university to take an entire day out of his or her schedule, that's a big ask. But asking someone to participate maybe 15 minutes, 30 minutes for a webinar, that's doable. So that's really being able to leverage technology. I was able to do that also, bringing in different speakers to my classroom through the internet. And the students really appreciate this type of interaction with the practitioners.
I think that's really fascinating. And I like how you really captured the essence of digital means giving you access to people or locations that you haven't had before in that similar way. But I think I mentioned it, and several of the keynote speakers also mentioned it before. The point or the big challenge that we're facing in many parts of the world is actually access to that very digital technology. And I think Kulani, from her expertise, from her research that she has done over the past couple of years, she has some very interesting first-hand insights into exactly that, and in particular dealing with the more subtle barriers that there are to access that are going beyond the mere technical issues. So Kulani, would you be able to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, thank you so much, Renee, and thank you so much for the kind invitation. I'm delighted to be here today, virtually. So it's quite an experience joining the panel to talk about equal access to education in the digital age, digitally. So, and kind of a lot of my experience has been with increasing access to education and digital access in general with international organizations. So I'll be speaking specifically within this realm. And I'll be talking about a few barriers to this, to increasing this access, and then perhaps we can deep dive into more solution-oriented strategies later on. But yes, so on the one hand, we have fantastic opportunities here. We are able to increase access with these with digital technologies and connect across borders. I'm connecting from Paris. I'm sure a couple others are connecting from different areas as well. I would have, of course, loved to visit and do this in person, but it's also great that I'm able to kind of work this into my kind of daily work schedule. However, there are also some barriers to current barriers to ensuring equal access to education in the digital age. One is, and this has been touched on during this panel, access to infrastructure. We need to be tapping into existing distance learning platforms, but also in my experience, international organizations and private sector organizations can be increasing national capacities to distance learning platforms as well across borders. So there are some areas, even if you take specific context, what we found was that more urban areas may have more digital learning platforms and kind of sites to foster this learning, much more so than perhaps rural areas, which, as we said, need it the most, have perhaps the most vulnerable communities within this area. And most importantly, when we talk about increasing access, we also should be looking at to whom are we increasing access to. So are we increasing access to specific more kind of elite pockets within specific areas, or are we increasing access across genders? To give one specific example, when I was in my experience, we were looking at, okay, we need to be increasing access to digital technologies within this specific area, which was more rural. And when we set up the center in collaboration with a private partner, what we found was that we had set up laptops and brought in teachers to increase digital literacy to foster educational access, digital educational access. And what we found was that this center was most often frequented by male students versus female students. Because perhaps female students, their parents weren't allowing them to actually come visit the center. They had no means to actually come to the center to begin with. And there were also no regulations set in place to say, well, there should be equal access to males and females or across genders, as there may be regulations to normal kind of private or public institutions. So we should be looking at whom are we actually increasing this access to, and are we tapping into all parts of our population geographically and also across genders, etc. And we can talk a little bit about how we can do that later on, I guess, in the comments. We should also be I briefly also want to touch upon the fact that we need to be increasing trust in these technologies. And one crucial way we could be doing this is fostering accountability. And this is again where, in my experience, international organizations have a big role to play in fostering this dialogue between public and private organizations, and understanding that access to education and the development of these technologies and the implementation of the technologies are no longer taking place within kind of national borders or national spaces. They're often developed in X country, and then they're kind of implemented worldwide. And so international organizations should be looking to foster this exchange, this dialogue, in hopefully trying to bridge this gap between the development of the technology and increasing their accountability, so that the public that they serve and the opportunities that they bring are more salient to the consumer, so that we are able to kind of say, yes, I trust this technology, I trust I'm able to use these technologies because I know that these checks and balances and regulations and dialogue has taken place to protect me as a consumer as well. And to also, of course, most importantly, protect the most vulnerable consumers in this space as well. And most importantly, we need to be collaborating internationally. And I thank Huawei for being a part of this. So that we need to be collaborating internationally, so that certain parts of the world aren't left behind in the digital age versus others. So thank you, and I'm happy to talk about this later on as well.
Thank you, Kehlani. I think the last point that you highlighted is really very close to our heart at Huawei. That is collaboration internationally in the more than 170 countries that we are active in. And thus, I would like to hand the floor to Afke, who will introduce some of the many solutions that we have put in place to bridge this divide that is still there and close the various digital gaps that are out there. Afke? I think you're muted, sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Here I am.
Now
Hi
we can
there.
hear you. Perfect.
Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me. Great. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much for organizing this. And I'm here in Europe, and I've actually been visiting Mobile World Congress in Barcelona last year, where these discussions took place as well on the digital divide and the skills gap. And as previous speaker said, there's still a big digital inclusion gap, and more or less half of the people in the world remain unconnected. And the situation is a bit worse for women than for men. Although the situation did improve in areas like Southeast Asia, although the situation in sub-Saharan Africa is still quite worse, and it worsened during the pandemic. So I think it's needed to say that the pandemic showed that technologies are needed to keep people working from home and to study from home. So we will take part in bridging the digital gap, but we also see another gap, the skills gap, where we also face the challenge that a lot of a very hard time acquiring the high talents, especially on STEM. So we also want to play in helping together with international organizations and government to make sure that people feel their potential. So the facility today is 200 million people working in ICT-related fields. So for that, we have special programs like for the future, and also our technical programs that we include in 2019. I do hear a sound in the background, if you can hear that as well. But we'll just continue. And now for this project, we share one program that we did that I'm specifically proud of. And that the program is called Story Sign. That's an app that you can find that we developed for young to the age of 6 that hear well. And with the help of AI, we've been able to translate books into more than 15 different sign languages for young children for their reading and stuff. So, that's just examples. We need many more examples. The sustainability report is launched today. But we really want to support it in a very pragmatic way. And as Renee said, we're globally active. We can play our part in making, the gaps a little bit. Tot u weer.
Okay, thank you, Afke, for this brief overview of the various activities that we are doing to close the digital gap across the board for women, for young people, and especially for the vulnerable groups in many of the developing countries. So let's move to a more open Q&A kind of format in this panel. And let me perhaps start off, first of all, with the question, as we go forward, as we are getting attached to this new normal, but also as the digitalization process moves forward, what is your opinion, what are your thoughts on the skills that we will need, or that young and upcoming people will need in this new digital age? Who would like to go on this? I think Dennis, you might be in a good position.
Yeah, I think this is a very good and a very difficult question to answer, because I think there are two major things. First, I think we can learn something from the climate change debate. In climate change, there was sort of seen for a long time that it was something nice to do to address climate change. And I think we have a similar thing for education now, for the many and digital divide. It's a nice thing to do. But I think we need to reframe that. It's an existential matter. It's not, we're not a human race worth our name if we don't bring people out of poverty and connect them. The right to exist for companies should be linked to the ability to connect people and include people. So this 11 billion filter, I think, is something that we need to lift up, not as a nice thing, but as an existential right to exist and as a priority for governments. And we should listen to the people that are at the forefront. By 2100, when the young people today will be old, 80% will live in Africa and Asia. We really need to put them at the forefront of this discussion. And that requires to do two things. We need to have deep technological understanding, but we also need to have ethical understanding. And I think what is important then is for stakeholders like Huawei to play a very important role to open up and explain to people the depth and the potential of the digital opportunities. Because most policymakers and most business still look at digital as an improvement on the margin to provide this sort of ethical and very inspiring world of 11 billion people living creative lives. Not because we should just lift them out of poverty because they are poor or we feel sad for them, but because they sit on the potential to contribute to make the world a better place. If we don't allow that, we have a very narrow mind. So that would be my thinking about really framing it and then thinking about both technology and ethics together.
Thanks, Dennis. So just carrying on from what Dennis just said, Ellen, again, from your first-hand perspective, what do you think is the skill set that is up and coming that will be important for the next decades to come? And how do you think do students and teachers have to align their, habits, maybe you could call it, to these new technological environments in which we're learning now?
Well, I'd like to talk about two particular skills that I think are very important as we move forward into the fourth industrial revolution. A lot of research has been showing that even from 2010 or 2015 to 2020, the top 10 skills that HR departments have said are important for new hires. The shift has now, the number one skill has shifted to creativity. And I think technology will allow people to be more creative, will allow people to interact with different people. We know that diversity leads to more creativity. So I can see the connection there. I also think another skill that is very important to have is empathy and understanding, being able to put oneself in another's shoes and understand what they're going through, and not adhering to stereotypes, just being open and willing to try new things and to really listen to other perspectives.
Thank you, Alan. Very enlightening. So how can we transfer exactly those points of creativity and not being stuck in stereotypes or traditional patterns to the behavior of international organizations and or international companies as ours in helping to address those challenges that we have? And maybe we could bring in Kulani first on this with her experience in working with and for and collaborating with international organizations in many of those projects on the ground.
Thank you so much, Renee. So I'd be happy to answer that. I do have one quick point, which on the skills question as well. Just because this is just a question that I'm often asked by young people who are just entering the job market, who maybe who are navigating their way through this. And it's interesting because, of course, as there are certain skills, basic coding skills, for example, that I always say are great to have at this point when we talk about a digital revolution. But one important point, and this is what Ellen adhered to as well, or discussed, there in demand, I would say, are also soft skills. So things which are not necessarily technical in nature, which is, technical skills, very important. And I would always encourage young people to have a basic understanding of, or even specializing these skills at this point, but also the ability to synthesize information. Because, for example, a lot of the different technologies, programming languages, etc., are constantly evolving. And the technologies that are available at our fingertips are changing every day. And so one important skill, I think, that we can foster is the ability to understand what is relevant to me in what I wish to do. And kind of being able to synthesize the different types of technologies on the market today, and then being able to actually build on that when they're kind of applying to positions, etc., I think are crucial. And this builds on Dennis's point as well in for private organizations to be able to say, this is what we have, this is what we're developing right now, so that young folks can also have an idea when they're thinking about the job market, say, okay, this is what I should be developing, this is what's relevant to me, and perhaps what's not relevant to me as well. But specifically on your point on international organizations, I would like to just discuss 3 core points here briefly. One is that IOs need to be agile enough to keep up with the development of these technologies in the private sector, and to be able to kind of foster that dialogue between the public sector and private sector. We don't want our conversations to be outdated by the time we have them. And most importantly, the technical expertise shouldn't just lie with private organizations. Ideally, there should be some understanding of what these technologies are able to do within the international organizations themselves, so that we can actually have a nuanced conversation. Instead of just kind of consultants being brought in at specific times, we should be able to say, well, we have an understanding of what we're able to do within our own capacities, and now let's actually build on this, and now let's actually talk about accountability, regulations, dialogue, what can be done, what cannot be done. We need to be talking very openly about lapses, about when we talk about trust building, we need to be able to say what a technology can do and cannot do. Sometimes there is this kind of often misunderstanding of what these types of technologies are able to do, and also when we talk about how they can be implemented in, for example, across context. Developed context versus developing context can be very different. So we need to be bringing stakeholders from the context in which we are implementing these technologies to the table as well. And finally, the role of disaggregated data should really be brought home here. Again, harkening back to my first points, to understand what gaps lie in how we're implementing technologies to ensure equal access in the digital age. We need to be collecting disaggregated data of the populations that we're serving, of the technologies that can be used to plug gaps in the populations that we're serving, and to understand how we can better build trust and kind of better foster also accountability in the use of these technologies on the consumer level.
Thank you, Kulani. And Afka, so what do you think can international companies do in that space, especially collaborating with international organizations and addressing the digital skills gap that we are having?
Yeah, thank you, Renee. Yeah, we think that we can work together quite well and that we can add a lot of value. And for that, we identified 3 areas where we would like to contribute on. And first of all, of course, that is technology, because that's what we do best. And for us, it's important that we develop technology that is also affordable to the people that we bring our services to. Because, if technology is there, but it's too costly, or the devices are too costly, it would not help much. So we've also been able in the pandemic to actually hand out a lot of the programs for SMEs when it comes to AI and developing for free. And we also have a lot of education programs specifically in Southeast Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa in partnerships with organizations like UNESCO that we have been giving out for free as well. So that is important to us, that the access to technology is there, not only from a technology point of view, but that it's scalable and that it's low cost and that it brings out good solutions for everybody. And second of all, it's applications or apps, so to say. So we're also quite active in this field in training people through our ICT Academy. Our ICT Academy was launched almost 10 years ago, and we have been training thousands and thousands of people all over the world on the newest technologies like 5G, AI, big data, and so forth and so forth. And we will continue to do so. But we're also proud that we have just been able to have a specific women app develop program that we launched in China, and that we want to scale out in other parts of the world as well. So together with competitions and for schools and universities as well, it's also good to know that we work through the ICT Academy and the Seeds for the Future program with lots of academia and think tanks all across the world to develop these programs. I'm just, saying all of them because at Huawei we are quite modest when we do these things, and you can read all about it, but it's sometimes also important to just speak them out loud so that people will know more about our initiatives and the great work that we're doing. So because in total we have been working with over almost 1,000 colleges and universities, and we train more than 45,000 students every year. So, with that, we also, of course, have our own interest. We want to address the shortage of workers, and we want to address the gap of the talents, the high skilled talents that we, of course, also need to develop new technologies. And so we are also working with different groups in the world to now develop 200,000 professionals, for example, in AI and in intelligent computing. So so there's just a few examples that I think we wanna flag. We want to do more. We will not stop here. And for us, indeed, international collaboration is key. And I think in this world during the pandemic, it has showed that it cannot go without the other. So it's not only a collaboration between international organizations and private and public partnerships, but it's also comes down to the individual levels sometimes. So everybody has a role to play well, facing the challenges of our time. If it is, on education, if it's on nature, there's so much that we're facing that we need to work together on. And I'm really happy to work for an organization that has the scale and the eagerness to do our best to build back better for all.
Thank you, Afka. I think everybody couldn't really agree more. This decade is the decisive one for the century, and no company, no international organization, no individual will kind of be able to face this on their own. We all have to collaborate across borders, across organizations. So I would thank you, each and every one, very much for your collaboration today and for this very enlightening, very interesting panel. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Arnold, and all of our panel members for sharing their passion for inclusion and equality. What a wonderful presentation that was. Now, let's switch topics. Our next panel is about making tech work for the environment. I would like to welcome Huawei, Head of Global Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability Communication, Ms. Holly Ranavasanani, to chair our next panel, and Huawei board member and chairman to the Corporate Sustainability Development Committee, Mr. Tao Jingwen, to come to the stage. Thank you.
So good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It is really a pleasure for me to be here and to chair this conversation around what makes tech work for the environment. So sustainability is more than ever at the forefront of the global agenda. So as governments are urged to address the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement, as communities are heavily hit by the global pandemic, and also as businesses are highly expected to help limit global warming, climate change being one of the greatest challenges of our time. As a matter of fact, there were frequent environmental crises in 2020, bushfires in Australia, thawing permafrost in Siberia, and rising temperatures at the North and South Poles. Despite the temporary reduction of carbon emissions due to the economic lockdown and the global lockdown as well, figures indicate that these emissions are quickly rebounding. The climate crisis today requires all of us to reassess our relationship with the environment and transition into a circular economy. Today, digital transformation is reshaping our energy supply and demand model and expediting the shift towards a green energy and low carbon emissions. New digital technologies such as 5G, AI, or cloud, big data are working together to digitalize traditional energy networks. We also see innovative technological solution helps reduce the energy consumption and emissions, work towards a circular economy, and of course create a low-carbon society. And more importantly, ICT-enabled power savings and carbon emissions reductions will far exceed the industry's own, helping greatly conserve energy and reduce emissions worldwide. So, we are here today because we all acknowledge that technology plays a critical role in addressing environmental challenges. So we will hear from guest speakers on the opportunities and challenges in making technology an enabler and a tool to address climate change, as well as their perspectives on what's needed to accelerate the progress and make impactful changes. So I'm very delighted today to actually introduce our esteemed panelists. So together with me here in Shenzhen, we have Kevin Tao Jingwen, who is Huawei's board member and chairman of our Corporate Sustainable Development Committee. We also have online Paul Dickinson, the executive chair of CDP, and Paul is dialing in from the UK. We also have Luis Neves, the global CEO of Jessie, and Luis is dialing in from Portugal. We have the Associate Professor Simon Tay, the chairman of the Singapore Institute of International Affairs, dialing from Singapore. And we also have Sean DeClean, member of the Executive Committee, head of the Future of Food from the World Economic Forum, dialed in from Switzerland. So a fantastic lineup of speakers that we have today to have this conversation. So let me first start with you, Paul. So we know that transparency and carbon accounting are at the heart of the CDP mission, making sure that the availability of data and insights will encourage all organizations really to take a leap forward towards greater engagement in climate change. And we've seen as well that today, current challenges led to tech revolution. So maybe, Paul, if you can share your perspective on this and how technology basically manages risks and they create opportunities to accelerate the change. Paul.
Well, thank you very much, Holly, and also thank you very much to Huawei for this opportunity to be with you here today. And I want to begin my comments by talking a little bit about CDP, and then subsequently I'd like to talk about the role of telecommunications or information and communication technology. So CDP is a global organization, and in 2020 was our 18th year of operations. And CDP is famous for having corporations report on their environmental performance through us. And in fact, we had 9,600 large companies report through us in 2020. And from China, 1,350 large companies reported through CDP. We're a not-for-profit organization, and our purpose is really to accelerate and improve corporate performance on climate change, water security, and the drivers of deforestation. Now, companies report through CDP to their investors and also to their customers. CDP represents hundreds of investors with assets of over 650 trillion renminbi, which is more than the GDP of the world. And we also represent corporations with over 32 trillion renminbi annual purchasing. And the data reported to CDP is used by global financial organizations to create sustainable investment funds, but it's also used by purchasing organizations to help manage energy efficiency in supply chains. CDP also provides an evaluation of the performance of companies that report into CDP, and the highest performance is rewarded with an A grade. And 2 Chinese companies have achieved an A grade, including, well, they are Lenovo and Huawei. Of 11 total A grades, those are the highest ones, Lenovo and Huawei. So congratulations for your global leadership. Now, planet Earth is like a big spaceship, and we are all very much dependent upon the life support systems of that spaceship. And climate change is a chemical problem and creating difficulties for the biosphere, which we need to survive. So this is personal. As a scientific problem, CDP has collaborated with other organizations to develop a science-based targets initiative. And this is designed to support companies to ensure they develop their business plans to grow in compliance with the Paris Climate Agreement. 18 mainland Chinese companies have joined the Science-Based Targets Initiative, and this will help them support developing strategy consistent with China's 3060 commitment. So I'd like to now just say a few words about digital technology specifically. I mean, first of all, the digital sector just saved us from a global pandemic. We could not have operated an effective global economy in 2020 or 2021 without digital technology. So I think that the entire industry should be very proud of saving us from this pandemic in some regards. But I want you to think in terms of 5 great waves of climate change technology. The first one is renewable energy. The second one is electric vehicles. The third one is energy efficiency. The fourth one, distinguished member from the World Economic Forum will know, is food. And indeed, food science, I believe, could be very significant in the future. It is the opposite of cooking. instead of making the same things taste different, it is making different things taste the same. But removing meat from agriculture could liberate up to 90% of farmland in the world, which is an extraordinary potential. But as my friend Lewis from the Global E-Sustainability Initiative will know, I have been promoting the potential of video telephony and video communications for 20 years. But in the pandemic, my work was done. We now understand how significant it is potentially to be able to communicate like this. But I'm going to leave you with just one statistic. I did some analysis of CDP responses, and I took 10 large companies, airlines, cement, steel, and compared them to 10 telecommunications companies. The telecommunications companies had 85 times the income per ton of CO2. And they had 325 times the market value per ton of CO2. So I would like to conclude by saying that I believe dematerialization of economic growth, as Dennis Hamlin was saying in the previous panel to some extent, is an enormous opportunity for this sector and the world. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Paul, and I think that's indeed extremely powerful. And now moving on to Jesse. So, Luis, we know that since the launch of Jesse, you actually have been advocating for an innovative ICT-enabled transformation. And in your Smarter 2030 report, you even made it clear that digital technologies can be leading contributors to positive societal value. But this will only become a reality if the focus of technological development and deployment is framed by a clear commitment to the SDGs. So I think that is a very strong statement. So maybe, Luis, could you elaborate more on this and explain to us how the Digital with Purpose movement actually enables that very much needed change?
Well, thank you so much, Ollie. Thank you so much to Huawei for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to cooperate with you. Huawei is a strong, dedicated Jesse member company and very active. And it's always a pleasure to be in such a distinguished panel with my good friend Paul Dickinson as well. So, Ollie, I would like to start by saying that we have more than enough evidence about the role of digital technologies. You mentioned our Smarter 2030 report, but Jesse has been doing such reports since 2007, starting with the Smart 2020, Smarter 2020, 2030, and recently in 2019, we decided to launch a major research project that was led by Deloitte, together with over 150 experts across the world. And we tasked Deloitte to understand the impact of digital technologies in relation to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The task of Deloitte was to look into 7 disruptive technologies, from artificial intelligence, digital access, fast internet, cloud, IoT, cognitive, blockchain. So look into all those technologies and understand what is the impact of those technologies around 2030 in terms of shaping the Sustainable Development Goals. And the analysis was pretty stunning. So the report conclusions, again, as similar to previous Jesse reports, showed that digital technologies help to accelerate progress by 22% of the SDGs and will mitigate the downward trend of 23% of the SDGs. So just repeating what I said at the beginning, we have evidence. So that evidence has been there for many years, and we also listened to previous speakers in this conference today, the same thing. So the message is clear. So if we have that clear, the point that we have been discussing in Jesse is how can we make sure that those potentials can not only be achieved, but that through digital technologies we can increase the impact. And so at Jesse, taking into account the results of the Digital with Purpose report, we decided to embrace a project that we called Digital with Purpose Movement. And the Digital with Purpose Movement is not about repackaging existing efforts or restating previously declared intentions or promises. We are designing a framework that is driven by ambition and that is aiming to be competitive, and our intention is to get the companies through this framework achieving the top. And to achieve the top and to make sure that we understand where the companies are, we need to measure. We need to measure and we need to understand how the companies are taking action. So we are inviting the digital industry to come together with a shared ambition to create business value through radically accelerating the enabling power of digital technology for the SDGs, whilst minimizing the negative externalities that may arise. And let me point out that not everything that is happening around digital technologies is going in the right direction. So we do understand, and the report showed clearly, that we have 5 key fundamental challenges that we need to address as technology companies. The first one is related with climate change, energy consumption. We need to invest more on renewable energy. We need really to walk the talk. We need to lead by example if we are going to address the challenges of climate change that we are facing. We all understand that the world will be depending on digital technologies. Today, 65% of the world economy relies on digital, and that will increase. So that means digital technologies will be needing more energy, and that energy needs to be clean. And we need to walk the talk and invest in clean energy. The second challenge is around supply chains. We still have lots of problems in supply chains that we need to address. We need to eradicate child labor from our supply chains. We need to respect rights of people, of workers working in supply chains. So that's the second area. The third one is around circular economy. We are producing more. So Paul was talking about dematerializing. Dennis Pamering was talking about dematerializing. We need to dematerialize even more. We need really to go on that path to also to address the challenges related with circular economy. And then we have 2 additional challenges that we identified in our report. One is related with privacy, security, ethics, and we know how that conversation has becoming more and more relevant, creating tensions around the world. And the 5th one is around digital inclusion. As digital companies become richer and more powerful, they are leading the world. They are creating a bigger gap between those that have and those that do have not. So the Digital with Purpose movement is about 3 fundamental things. One is about shaping the way that companies will be governing themselves in introducing sustainability components in their governance. So companies need to align their governance process with the Sustainable Development Goals. That's a fundamental key decision that companies need to undertake. The second layer of our movement is about to address the challenges. So we develop the metrics that will help the companies to address those challenges and to make progress. And those metrics are designed not for companies to make any promise. This is about going on a journey to achieve a better world in 2030. And finally, we are developing the metrics around the enabling technologies. So technologies for natural capital, biodiversity, climate change, education, health, and so on and so on. So the Digital with Purpose movement is a framework, is a tool designed with an ambition. It is competitive. It's about getting the companies competing against each other towards 2030 to see which one will be the best one. And we designed the certification model that will reward the companies which are best in class. So this is what we are designing, and we are very proud that Huawei was with us, a founding member of this initiative. We launched the movement in Lisbon during the European presidency, and we have now over 40 companies working together, but I'm sure that we will have thousands of companies joining this movement in the upcoming years. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Luis. And as you said, indeed, I think technologies can make an impact, and we have to also take the lead in that. And that makes me to transition to Huawei, because we know that Huawei is actually known to actively exploring a low-carbon cycle development model, promoting recovery, recycling, and also really working into reducing the carbon emissions. But more importantly, through technological innovation, actually Huawei enables carrier and enterprises to save energy and reduce emissions, and of course help the industry chain achieve green development goals. So Kevin, I would like to ask you, can you maybe tell us more how you see ICT as an enabler to make over industries transition into a low carbon society?
Thank you for asking this question. First of all, we are aware that in the last 3 decades, the progress of technologies have brought immense change to the economy and people's life. For example, in China, the penetration of communication service was less than 10%. Now 100% of people have phones, and people can use communication services smoothly, and we also have the biggest internet user community in China. We can share videos, we can share VR experience, and today we connect to speakers all over the world, even amidst the pandemic. But at the same time, we need to be aware that, just like Dr. Liang Hua said, the progress of technology needs to remind us that for this ICT industry or the digital industry, it must be green on its own part. And at the same time, the progress of technology does not only need the industry itself to be green, it also means that our industry should bring transformational changes to other industries. According to our experience, for the digital energy technologies, for example, the use of solar energy has seen a lot of progress in the past few years, and this also drives the trend of using renewable energy. And we also find that the use of a digital technology can, in addition, improve the balance of dynamics of the energy network and increase the power generalization efficiency. In this way, saving energy and making energy sector greener. So the digital technologies are green in itself. And secondly, how to contribute more to protecting the environment and lower the carbon emission. Technology plays a very important role here. And the second point I want to make is that Huawei, as a global leading ICT technology and solution provider, and also being a leading provider of consumer electronics, we actually are very committed to the sustainable development of a company. Not only do we care about the technology development, but also sustainable development. And green development is one of our 4 sustainable key pillars. The first pillar is digital inclusiveness. Second, security and trustworthiness. Green and sustainable and harmonious ecosystem. These are the 4 pillars. We believe that the protection of environment doesn't mean that we need to contribute to carbon neutrality, but it also means that we need to have a thriving ecosystem to support the better green development. So we work from 3 fronts to have a positive impact and reduce the negative impact that may be caused by economic development. And we are also working towards carbon neutrality in the last 5 years. We worked on reducing carbon emission. Now, for 1 million RMB revenue, the corresponding emission of carbon has reduced by 33.2% compared with 2016. And the carbon emission growth rate is less than 3%. So we can say responsibly in our 5-year strategic planning cycle, we can achieve a carbon peak. We believe that we can achieve the carbon peak in the next 5 years. So that is about our own operations. Secondly, carbon emission reduction, circular economy, being green and environmental friendly is embedded into every part of our process, including R&D and production. We provide more than 10 types of materials that are recyclable, and we have 16 R&D centers around the world, including our Chengdu R&D Center that has achieved carbon neutrality. And for Huawei, I think the digital technology industry needs to be responsible for Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3. So Scope 1 and Scope 2, well, we only account for small part in Scope 1, about 1.7%, and for Scope 2 is 98.2%. And for the companies that manufacture technological products, the Scope 3 is about 10 times of the sum of Scope 1 and Scope 2. So we must work to coordinate the industry chain to reduce the carbon emission of the supply chain. For example, for Huawei's 5G, we have been working on reducing the energy consumption of our 5G solutions. Huawei's 5G products are leading the world. Our energy efficiency is 40% better than the competition. So from this perspective, we need to pay more attention to the energy consumption caused by our customers using our products. For example, for Huawei's phones, we have very long battery life, very low energy consumption. People like to use our phones because our phones have a long battery life and can be used for a very long time. So from this perspective, we really are very keen to work with the upstream and downstream partners to reduce the Scope 3 energy consumption. And we also promoting the carbon neutrality plan, action plans and goals in Huawei. And this year we have not included that in our CSR report, but very soon we will announce our carbon neutrality goals. And thirdly, we promote technologies for good. We promote technologies for nature. Like Dr. Liang Hua said that we also want to contribute to the conservation of environments, and technologies should play a bigger role in conservation. And I will not delve into the details, but we did make a lot of effort. So from these three fronts, Huawei focus on reducing our impact for our own operations. Second, we work with the entire ecosystem to look at scope 3 and also the energy consumption of using our products. And third, we also hope to contribute more to conservation. Thank you.
And I think you mentioned about this need for having a thriving ecosystem and as well the need for transformation. And that makes me move on to Professor Tay from Singapore. So we know that the Singapore Institute for International Affairs is a well-known institute and think tank committed to shaping public policies and social environmental responses. And you've been witnessing as well great progress, especially in green financing over the past few years, and the increasing interest in nature-based solutions. So, Professor Tay, could you maybe tell us a little bit more about how do you see technology as a tool to ensure safe and reliable data, especially on disclosure for sustainability, to support the development of green financing in ASEAN countries? Professor Tay?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor, and it's very good I spoke after the board member from Huawei, because there's so many things that Huawei can do, and so many things that Huawei as a big company, a leading company, will be expected to do. Please allow me to share a few thoughts from my perspective here in Singapore, with some background of what we do. You're right, we've been working a lot on sustainability and green finance, and really we've seen this sector transform. For one where only governments were involved in regulating the risk, to one where it's much more about opportunities, and the market and major companies are responding quite positively. So here in Singapore, we feel that over the last decade, Asia, Singapore, ASEAN is shifting from a very defensive, negative footprint of standing to a much more forward-leaning, and I'm glad to hear that Huawei will be one of the companies also doing their part, if not more, through their supply chain. Additionally, the SWA works a lot on the political economy, not only of our governments, but we play a track-two role across the region. And so a lot of this has been trying to get ASEAN, the region around Singapore, to be working on both the sustainability issue and the climate issue, especially as we move towards Glasgow, and also the digitalization issue, which is one of the positive points coming out of this terrible pandemic and the economic impacts of the pandemic. So both, actually, frankly, we are quite at an early stage. While my country, Singapore, has been forward-leaning, there's much more that ASEAN can do in trying to create a region-wide effort on climate. So my think tank is trying to talk to our government, but also Brunei, the current chairman, Indonesia, about creating a sense of climate community, carbon credits, which can then be used across the region, and to green our supply chains. We are also working on digitalization because we feel that ASEAN, these 600 million people, not as big as China, no one is, but still 600 million is significant. And we're trying to create that harmonization in policies, and not only in the sort of more of the specific technology issues and standards, but also on the sustainability. Now, let me move to the question you've asked me specifically. How can digital technology, in our view, enable sustainability? So for many years, we've been working on this idea of green finance. And essentially, beyond the technicalities, it's a question of trust. The trust of supply chain, when somebody says this is carbon-free or carbon low, where it came from, these must be verified. And of course, verification is very often a costly and inaccurate process. Increasingly, though, we believe that stronger efficiency and effectiveness of ESG and data collection can be done through digitalization. The digitalization of our trade during a single window is one major step. Additionally, trying to use data and disclosures to make them more comparable will allow corporate sustainability commitments to really be verified, so they will have real action and not just sort of empty promises. And I think I don't have to tell Huawei and your suppliers and audience here what the possibilities are for digital technology really revolutionize this. And I think I want to say that Singapore can be the regional partner to add that layer of verification, because a lot of the trade, a lot of the finance, a lot of the technologies are hubbed here. We don't have the production, oftentimes, of either manufactured or resource, but we have these trading links and investment that can allow us to be that fulcrum to really make a region-wide change using technology and these other levers of finance that I talked about. And really, we're seeing this across a lot of areas, whether it is the solar energy business or the resource sector. One of the examples I think constantly being brought up in many businesses, many sectors, is of blockchain. For many years, the SWIA and I have worked on the issue of the haze, a heavy pollution that crosses from Indonesian fires on the lands, which often have caused deforestation and a great release of carbon. We believe that using traceability, data transparency, and blockchains in agribusiness will be a major step to stop these bad practices and punish those by excluding them from various supply chains. We're starting to see the market of the big buyers in Europe, America, and others demand this kind of action. And I think with this kind of technology and effort, we can enable the right efforts to include the right producers and exclude the illegal, unethical production and distribution. Another area, major area, is, as your Huawei speaker said, the tech sector itself in terms of its energy consumption. Singapore is very lucky to have both a geographical stability, a certain centrality of the region, as well as a political stability, which has made us one of the regional targets to be a data center. But I'm afraid to tell you, the Singapore government, I think correctly, has imposed a moratorium on building new data centers here unless we can find ways to decarbonize them. Now, this demand is important, but we're not just making a demand. We're trying to work with the private sector to find innovative ways to reduce the carbon footprint. I think this will be an important step not only for Singapore, but for the whole industry as we try to move the data centers to where it is logical to have them. The increased convenience that has been shown, the need of the digital economy to really supply households, especially during this pandemic, is not a temporary thing. It will be part of the digital future, part of the economic growth. But the footprint of that, I mean, even if e-commerce per se is relatively green, except for the energy used in the placing of the platform, etc., the question will be of the last mile problem. And this is so evident in a small city like Singapore. Even though it's been so efficient, deliveries associated with carbon, with increased plastics and waste. And so I think it's a big question for the technology and digital companies like Huawei to figure out what is their responsibility. I mean, it's not their action, but they're part of that overall supply chain. And so what can be done? Here in Singapore, we believe that governments, not just in Singapore, but across the region, must play their role. So the SWI and I are working to bring ASEAN together to take action on climate, to deal with the digital opportunities, and to also create a climate community that has a regional market for carbon credits with nature-based solutions coming out of the region that can enhance conservation. So not just avoiding the evils, but really creating investment and opportunities to make things better. But I think in the end, governments cannot do it alone. And this is where the SWI and I have tried to also be engaged with companies, not just Huawei. I've had the pleasure of being a corporate advisor to Temasek International, and the new incoming CEO sees climate as the key strategy for its company investments, but also the portfolio of companies that it holds in, from Singapore Airlines to Keppel and other significant Singapore companies. We also feel that this is happening across the region. I was also a global advisor to Toyota and to MUFG Group of Japan. And whether it's manufacturing or finance, we see these trends. Asia and ASEAN has been on a rather negative footing for a lot of the debate and movement on climate and on sustainability as a whole. China, I think, has led some of the way to make a difference, to make a positive contribution to climate. And it's my hope that Singapore and ASEAN can be part of that more positive alliance for action, both the governments, and the private sector. Please allow me to stop here, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to respond to them.
Thank you very much, Professor Tay. I think you mentioned something very important, which is about trust in technology and as well the collaboration between public and private sector. So let me move on to talk to Sean. Sean, so we know that the World Economic Forum has made its priorities to convene discussion, also launch initiatives to really deal with the SDGs, especially in this complex and interdependent world. So as you could see, following the pandemic more than ever, we could witness that there is a need for a systemic approach, more inclusive and more resilient programs as well, and platforms to be enabled by technology. So maybe, Sean, can you tell us a little bit more about this need for interoperability and also greater collaboration on technological innovation? Sean?
Thank you. And it's great to be here, and congratulations for hosting this dynamic session, and just the dialogue, just listening to it, really interesting, you know, the opinions as they're coming out and what's being shared. I think the world really needs to come together, and this year more than ever in the face of this most challenging of pandemics, in a way that it really heals together globally, and so the role of collaboration is going to be so important, and we need to do that in a way which is going to be much greener, much safer, much more inclusive than we've done before. And so, I mean, we have a blueprint for doing that in the sense of the Sustainable Development Goals. It's now, okay, how do we create the urgency around the Sustainable Development Goals, around the Paris Declaration goals, and really translate those into action? And I think I'd like to make 3 observations in that sense. One is around this issue of taking a systems approach. I think we have to really break the silos. We have to stop thinking, today we're talking around the environment, but it would be very easy just to talk on the environment on its own, or to look at deforestation, and we often do that, or to look at biodiversity, or to have a separate conversation around food, or a separate conversation around the oceans, or a separate conversation around the economy. How do we actually address that systemically? That is the critical emerging challenge, and really break those silos and look at the interconnectedness in a way that will address these problems in a coherent way. I think the second thing is then around the need, and you mentioned it, for much more agile coalitions. I think we have to move beyond, beyond pilots where we're testing out a new approach. And I think we have to move beyond classic partnerships where we work together with with a small set of partners, even if it has a large impact, because that still will keep us operating in a narrow sense. And so how do we develop these agile digital coalitions, particularly for a nature positive net zero transition? And so that's going to require us to, in the way that digital technology has had to think about interoperability and how do you build those data and digital ecosystems and unlock the power of that technology in a way that's much more inclusive. How do we do that with partnerships as well? So that we're not just, in a way, we're going to have to take our institutional logos, our initiative logos, off and take those hats off, leave them at the door, and think, right, okay, how do we build out these really big coalitions for action if we're going to achieve the impact that we need at scale? And the third point I'd like to make is then around also looking at this. I think what this pandemic has shown us is the need to be both operating taking a complete global view while also bringing this right down to the very local and what that means and how we create those linkages. And Professor Simon Tay talked about the last mile problem and how we address that. And what we're seeing is the critical need not just for solution to be developed, but to actually build those innovation ecosystems at the country level or at the subnational level. And so how do you build these dynamic innovation ecosystems in a way that allows us to learn quickly, to develop new ways of working together in a much more agile way, to fail fast in a way, and then to move on from those failures and to actually move on and take forward a different way of working together, and to learn that it's okay to make those mistakes as long as we're understanding what our objective is and why we're trying to do that. And so that requires the building up of these local ecosystems and also of de-risking. How do we de-risk? We're going to have to go through a significant transition. And if we look at the net zero transition, we're now seeing a huge movement towards that, which is very positive. One of the roles that I have at the forum is to oversee the food systems work here. And I mean, the food system transition is going to be even more complex again. And so how do we then take a 3-5 year outcome and really develop a series of short-term sprints in a way that can unlock some of these medium-term and long-term changes at scale. And so that will require that building of these national ecosystems. So in summary, systemic thinking, agile, digital and partnership coalitions, and building of local ecosystems and infrastructure are going to be so critical as we move forward.
Thanks very much, Sean. And I think you said it all about unlocking the potential of technologies. And I think it's also, we heard from this conversation today about this call for action for the different stakeholders to all join forces and actually work together through technology. Unfortunately, due to the sake of time, we may not have time to deep dive into the questions today, but we do welcome any comments and feedback from the audience. So I just would like to finish by taking the opportunity to invite all of you to have a look at our sustainability report that was just released today, so you can have a deeper understanding of Huawei's engagement in sustainability and our key initiatives. So thank you again for participating, for joining us today, for your time and these insights, and also thank you for the audience who joined us, and we look forward to connecting again soon. Take good care. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly, and thank you to the incredible panel that we just heard. I'm sure after that you all have a lot of questions that you would like to ask. Now, once again, we have a few more housekeeping. We are moving, first of all, to consecutive translation. So this means there will be a bit of a time delay. Just allow for that if you're asking questions. Now, if you're asking questions online, please remember to change your name and make sure it is your real name and the media that you represent so that we can find you for your question. When you have your question, please just raise your hand and we will find you. We'll come to you in a second. First of all, I would now like to invite Dr. Liang Hua back to the stage and Mr. Tao Jingwen also back to the stage, and our panelists online. Thank you. Now, we also have 3 speakers back on, you heard earlier. So we have Dr. Bruno Oberle, we have Mr. Paul Dickinson, and Mr. Dominic Warre. So, first we will go with some questions from the hall, then we will take our questions from our media friends online. Do we have any questions from the hall, first of all? Can we have a microphone for the lady in the black first? Thank you. Please say your name, your media, and who your question is for. Thank you.
OK，Thank you。大家下午好，我是来自南方日报的记者。有一个问题想请教陶景文先生。今天我们也从论坛上了解到，碳中和呢已经是全球的使命，而且华为的优势不仅在于自身实现碳中和，更在于帮助各行各业。那么想请问您，华为是否为自身实现碳中和设置了一些量化的目标？那华为计划从哪些方面来帮助各行各业实现碳中和呢？谢谢。
Daily. This is a question from South Daily. The question is addressed to Mr. Tao Jingwen. From the conversation in this forum, we have heard that carbon neutrality has become a global mission, and what Huawei is good at is not just attaining carbon neutrality within the company, but also helping the different vertical industries to achieve carbon neutrality. So we would like to understand if Huawei has set quantifiable targets for its journey to achieve carbon neutrality, and in what fields is Huawei going to help the vertical industries achieve carbon neutrality?
感谢啊，这个首先我刚才其实论坛里我已经讲到了，其实我们呢。一个方面就是不断的持续改进，做好自己，让我们的这个不断的优化华为自身的研发、生产、供应、制造、采购全产业链的整个碳排放，和这个减少如何减少碳排放，如何节能减排，我们一直是从2012年开始到现在，在不断的持续推进，改进我们的自身的运营。然后在这方面呢，我们也取得了一些小小的进步。刚才其实我已经讲到了，我们把每100万美元的整个每100万人民币的这个碳排放，是吧？经过这些年的努力呢，我们下降了33.2%。然后整个的我们也华为呢出现了首个园区，是吧？我们的这个成都研究所呢，已经达到了碳中和。那我们第二个，其实刚才讲到了，其实包括刚才最后发言的那个世界经济论坛的也讲到了，其实它需要一个全产业链的融合。其实我们华为的观点呢，就是向上看一步，向下走一步。就是我们第一呢是自己要构建负责任的供应链。我们在供应链上，我们已经对华为的供应链。所有的华为的产业供应链和合作伙伴呢，我们都提出了碳减排的目标，以及碳中和的目标。我们而且在今年的这个5月份的这个华为的全球供应商大会上，我们的供应链的总裁对华为的供应商制定了这个明确的碳排放的这些目标。那第二个呢，我们是积极的融入我们的客户，比如说我们全球的运营商。那我们呢，都是在像中国移动、沃达丰这种全球的所有的我们的电信运营商的客户，我们都积极的加入他们的整个碳减排、碳中和的整个的行动计划和目标里。我们不断的改进我们的产品，然后呢，比如像刚才我们讲到的，在5G 产品，我们就讲我们不断的加速我们的产品和技术创新，让我们的产品更具有竞争力。我们也提出来了一个明确的目标，到2025年，华为公司的所有的主力产品的能耗，是吧？相对于2019年，要提升2.7倍，是吧？这是一个这个非常有挑战的，而且很明确的这个目标。举个例子吧，大家可能很难理解，比如说5G 当下的这个排放量，这个平均的标准的5G 站的这个能耗。是2200瓦，如果改善2.7倍，就是我们要把这个的排放这个能耗要提升到1000瓦以内，所以这个的改变的量是巨大的，也是我们在这个对行业的一个郑重的承诺。再一个呢，我就刚才讲到了，我们正在
郝总，我先翻译一下。
没有在线翻译。
我先翻译一下。Thank you very much for the question. I've touched upon this. Actually, in my speech and panel discussion, On the one hand, we keep improving our business operations and optimize our activities across the supply chain, including our research and development, production, supply, and manufacturing, you name it, all these activities in the supply chain. What we're trying to do is to cut the carbon emission and reduce energy consumption. From 2012 onwards, we have kept making such efforts, and we have already seen some positive progress. For example, the carbon emission per 1 million RMB revenue has been reduced by 33.2%. And Huawei has already achieved carbon neutrality in our campus, which is Chengdu R&D Center. This is the first Huawei campus that's able to deliver carbon neutrality. In addition, as is mentioned by the panelist from WEF, it takes concerted efforts of the entire industry. For ourselves, Huawei will do our best to ensure that we have a responsible supply chain. It means that we have raised carbon reduction targets and carbon neutrality targets for our supply chain partners. In May 2021, we held a global supplier conference. At that conference, we raised carbon reduction goals for our suppliers. At the same time, we actively engage in the carbon reduction and carbon neutrality programs and action plans made by our customers, such as China Mobile and Vodafone. We're actively part of their programs to achieve the carbon goals. Also, again, looking at our products and solutions, including the 5G solutions, we keep improving our products and solutions. There are lots of ongoing innovations that make our products more carbon friendly and competitive. If we look at 2025, then compared to 2019, what we want to achieve in our mainstream products is that we want to make them more energy efficient. They need to be 2.7 times more energy efficient than the products that we had in 2019. To help you better understand what I mean by 2.7 times optimization, if you look at a 5G base station, it consumes about 2,200 watts. If it's optimized by 2.7 times, it means that the power consumption needs to be reduced down to 1,000 watts or even lower. That gives you a better idea about the 2.7 times optimization. That's a lot.
还有最后一句话就是我们正在制定华为的未来碳中和的这个目标，我想在不久的将来我们会正式的发布。
And one more thing, we are currently developing carbon neutrality goals for Huawei, and when we finalize the carbon neutrality goals, we will announce it to the public.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tam. Do we have any other questions from the hall? Can we have a microphone for the gentleman in the white, please?
应该站起来啊！我是日本广播协会 NHK 的记者，想问杨总。 但是我这个提问不太适合今天的这个题目，请您原谅。就是请问华为手机业务的目前的销售情况如何？就是你们预计今年下半年的这个手机出货量，同比增长还是下滑？这个原因是什么样的？然后另外呢，就是今年就是2021年的业绩的展望怎么样？谢谢。
I'm a journalist from NHK, and the question is addressed to Dr. Liang. I have to apologize first because it's not a question relevant to today's topic. It's a question about Huawei smartphones. I wonder how's the performance of Huawei smartphones, and what would be your forecast for the second half of the year? What would be the smartphone shipment like? Will it be a year-on-year increase or year-on-year decline, and why? What do you think would be the 2021 business prospects for the company?
那我想原因是很清楚的啊，众所周知，就是由于美国多轮的制裁，因为这样的话对我们的手机业务确实带来了比较大的影响。那我们还会继续坚持我们在手机上面的一些发展。 因为在这一块的手机的这个业务量，那随着我们现在这个时间的发展，应该这块的量呢，跟去年相比还是有一定的下滑的。
The reasons I think are crystal clear because the US sanctions on our company. These sanctions have a pretty big impact on our smartphone business. But we'll still continue to uphold our development strategy for smartphone business. And with regards to the shipment question, we will see a year-on-year decline for the smartphone shipment.
那我们想在手机业务，我们在业务连续性方面做一些工作。另外一个，我们还会加大我们在软件方面的一些投入。那我们应该说，我们华为鸿蒙的操作系统就是 Harmony OS 2.0目前已经开始跟一些用户开始进行使用。那到目前为止，应该说华为鸿蒙有鸿蒙操作华为鸿蒙操作系统的手机，现在已经达到了。 已经超过2500万2500万。我想随着时间的这种发展，也会有更多在中国市场会有更多的用户把他们的操作系统能够升级到鸿蒙操作系统。那么这样的话，我们同时我们还会 HMS 这样的话我们来支持我们的云服务，发展我们的生态。所以说，我们想在手机业务上面，这是我们现在。那华为。 在整个消费者业务，我们坚持1+8+N。除了手机之外，我们还会有我们其他的，包括平板电脑包括这个运动穿戴包括智能音响等等这还包括车载屏这样的智慧大屏，我们等等这样，我们也会加强一些生态的发展，来促进我们在全场景智能生活这一块业务。
On the one hand, we will make sure that we continue our efforts to sustain the business continuity management, while at the same time we will step up our investments in software. Some users, smartphone users, have already started to experience our Harmony OS 2.0, the operating system. So far, 25 million Huawei smartphone users have upgraded their cell phones to Harmony OS 2.0. Moving forward in the China market, we expect to see more and more users upgrading their smartphones to Harmony OS 2.0. We're also striving to develop HMS, Huawei Mobile Service Ecosystem. For our consumer business, we insist on a strategy that we call 1+8+N strategy. It means that it involves tablets, wearables, sport and fitness products, audio, and the smart screen and such. These are the portfolio of products and the scenarios that we like to satisfy so that we can provide seamless services for the smart home scenarios.
Thank you, Dr. Liang. Do we have any other questions from the floor? Can we have a question? Can we have a microphone for the lady at the back? Thank you.
大家好，我是中国环境报的记者。我有些问题想要问一下 IUCN 的总干事 Bruno Obelix 博士。
Do we have a question for Mr. Bruno Obelix? Thank you.
近期云南野象北迁引起了全球媒体的关注。那么我们在讨论野象北迁跟环境变化有关的同时，也注意到，无人机、GPS 等技术在追踪大象行迹、保护人民财产安全上起到了一定的作用。那么我想问一下，您认为科技在保护自然环境中起到了怎样的作用 ？IUCN 与华为的合作有哪些方面？ 而这些合作又将如何助力环境保护呢？谢谢。
I'm a journalist from China Environment News, and this is a question addressed to Dr. Bruno Obelix from IUCN. As we see that the news of elephants migration in Yunnan has attracted the attention of global media, and this is a topic relevant to the conservation of nature and environment. And from this news, we have also observed the role of drones and GPS and such technologies have been use in tracking down the elephants and protecting lives and properties. So the question is, what do you think is the role of technology in conservation of nature and the protection of environment? What kind of cooperation is IUCN working on with Huawei, and how is this kind of cooperation going to contribute to the conservation of nature and protection of environment?
Thank you very much for the question. I mean, ICT technologies are making societies smarter, more in general, smarter in all senses. And this applies also to the question that IUCN is working to, the sustainable use and management of natural resources, and in particular of biodiversity. So let's say the first layer answer would be with more data, with more information, we are able to manage the amount of natural resources that humanity needs and uses better, to plan a better supply of natural resources at places that are less impacting to be extracted. We can plan the transformation of natural resources into products better, more efficiently, with less natural resources, with less pollution, with less emission. Then we can also identify the better products for the future. We know that to sustain 10 billions of Earth citizens on the planet in the future, with the standard of life that we need, we have to change our production and consumption patterns. And to make this change, we need information. We need information about consumer needs, consumer behaviors, and these can be delivered by ICT technologies. We can make all steps of the use of our platform, natural platform, better, smarter, more efficient. In particular, this is also true for the specificity of the conservation activities. We can, as you know, for example, 80% of biodiversity losses are due to the impact of agriculture. So we have a pretty old business models and technology in agriculture. We can become much more smarter, much more focused, using pesticide and uses fertilizer in a much more targeted way. We can change the type of products that we produce, and these all can be done by the support of ICT technology and better data and better information. And then in the everyday management of conserved areas, you have made the example of the elephants in Thailand. I could make the example of the Swiss National Park, where the cooperation between IUCN and Huawei will bring technology to automatize the analysis of the millions of camera-trapped pictures that the national park is producing, to use them to improve the wildlife monitoring and data transmissions. We can also use digital tools to measure the protected area's contribution to climate change and to produce certificate of reduction. This is a concrete element of the cooperation between Huawei and IUCN in the national park, as we have very concrete, pragmatic project in China, in Thailand, in Spain, in Seychelles, in Mauritius, where we have, I guess, the first underwater monitoring system for the coral reef of Mauritius. So the potential is huge to become better in use of natural resources, and we are contributing with the cooperation between IUCN and Huawei in this direction. We plan for the future to expand this cooperation also to educational elements. We have We don't need not only the technology, but we need also the user of the technology of the future. And we plan to join forces in reflecting how can we educate people in the use of ICT technology for natural resources use and management. Thank you.
谢谢您的问题。其实啊，现在的社会可以这么说，它就是 ICT 可以把社会变成智能社会，不管是哪个方面 ，ICT 几乎都可以起到这么一个作用。所以，同样的 ICT， 它在保护自然方面，就是可以进一步的让我们发展可持续的环境保护工作，尤其是有利于生态多样性的保护。其中一个突出的方面呢，那就是通过 ICT 的技术，可以加强对于比方说自然资源的数据的管理，可以让我们更好的去做自然资源的供应方面的规划。比方说，在对自然资源做一些采掘利用的时候，更好的做这样的供应规划，去减少这个自然资源的这个消耗。那么同时呢，它还可以更有效的帮助我们去使用自然资源，减少自然资源的浪费，减少污染，减少排放。那么同时呢，还可以帮助我们识别出更好的基于自然资源的这些产品，以此来支持生活在这个星球上的未来这个数十亿的人口，以及支持人们所需要的这个生活水平。其实啊，这需要我们在根本上去改变当前的生产模式以及消费模式。要做到要实现这个目标，就离不开充分的利用信息。因为呢，要更了解消费者的习惯以及当前人们的生活模式，才可以做出这种根本性的改变。同时啊 ，ICT 的技术还可以去使能我们整个自然平台，让它变得更加高效、更加智能。特别是在这个自然保护的方面，其实世界上80%的生物多样性损失都来自于农业活动，所以从这可以看出，农业其实是一个遵循着比较老的一种运作模式在发展的产业，同时里面所使用的技术也是比较老旧的。那 ICT 技术就可以帮助我们升级农业，比方说在这个使用农药和化肥的时候，可以帮助我们更有目的性的去使用农药和化肥，减少对于生物多样性的伤害，同时呢，也帮助我们可以研究如何去改良农产品。那所有这一些都是 ICT 技术以及信息处理能对于我们的自然保护带来的贡献。那您讲到的这个大象迁徙啊，它是的，它是这个自然保护的一个相关的一个内容。那我想给您举另外一个例子，就是我们在国家公园这个自然保护方面的工作，这是 IUCN 和华为合作的一个项目，通过应用这个技术去做自动化的这个就是视频内容的分析。这样的话可以帮助我们去监测野生动物的这个动向，而且通过技术呢，帮助我们更高效的进行数据传输。同时我们还可以通过这个技术去监控气候变化的状态，还可以向相关的这个方面呢去颁发碳减排达标的这种证书。所有这些都是 IUCN 和华为展开的非常具体的且务实的合作，他们遍布在中国、泰国、西班牙、毛里求斯。在毛里求斯可能还是世界上首个我们通过这个技术进行水下珊瑚礁监测的这么一个项目。这些都是华为与 IUCN 一起合作项目对生态保护做出的贡献，而且我们计划在未来进一步扩展我们的合作，要把它扩展到教育和培训的方面，因为我们所需要的其实不仅是技术本身，而是使用技术的人，所以我们希望能够集合彼此的力量，在这个教育上也能够加强合作，去做好 ICT 技术的赋能。谢谢您的提问。
Thank you, Dr. Obele. Just a reminder to all the media for your questions. Please just limit it to one question in the interests of time. Thank you. Now we're going to move online and see if we have any questions. I know we have one from Nikkei Asia, from Laolili. Please go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hi, this is Lolly with Nikkei Asia. I have a few questions for Chairman Liang, if I may. Huawei's R&D workforce is very impressive, exceeding 50% of your company's total workforce, which is very impressive. Just wondering if the percentage of 50% or higher will be a new normal for Huawei's R&D workforce this year and going forward. And under that planning, can you share with us a little bit more about your recruitment goal in China and overseas this year? Thank you very much.
我是来自于 Nikkei Asia 的记者，这个有2个问题啊，想请问一下梁博，是关于华为的这个研发人数。其实华为有非常庞大的研发队伍啊，这一点也是让我们非常佩服的。华为的研发这个员工占了总员工的50%以上。那么这个50%或者50%以上的这个占比，请问是否会就是华为以后的这个研发人员占比的新常态呢？就是今年未来是不是会保持这样的一种状态？那么还想请您与我们分享一下华为的在人力资源招聘方面的这个计划，包括在中国的招聘计划以及在海外的招聘计划，目标是什么？
那我想就说我们在人力资源方面。应该说我们根据我们业务发展的需要来确定我们在各个领域的这个人力资源的布局。
First of all, we make decisions and plans for human resources based on business needs.
那我们在过去这么多年一直加大研发领域的投入我们在应该过去3年，基本上每年这将近15%的这个。收入都投入到在研发领域。
We have kept increasing our investments in research and development. Over the past 3 years, every year we increased at least 15% of our annual revenue back into R&D.
那我想今年我们还会继续加大研发投入。那刚才你提到的人员结构，确实在华为公司，我们研发人员的比例。基本上将近50%是我们研发人员。那我们想在未来一段时间，华为还会持续加大在研发领域的投入。一方面，我们要解决我们供应连续性的问题；另一方面，我们还会投资未来一些新的技术。
This year, we will continue to make intensive investments in R&D. Your question touched upon the mix of talent in Huawei. It is true that in Huawei, R&D employees almost make up 50% of the total employee body, and we'll continue to make intensive investments in R&D. And this means that, firstly, we will invest to ensure supply continuity. Second, we're going to invest for the future.
那我想在研发人员的这种布局结构方面，应该在未来不会有大的变化可能还会在某些领域里面，根据我们业务发展的需要，我们会加大这方面的投入。
I would say that we won't have major changes to the mix of talent in terms of the R&D employees. And if there are specific business needs, we will increase investment in specific R&D fields.
那我们也欢迎这种一些人才特别是需要我华为公司需要的一些研发这个一些领域的人才能够加入到华为。
Here, I would like to call on the talent, especially the talent that we are seeking in the specific fields. Please come and join us.
Thank you, Dr. Liang. Next, we have a question from Arabian Reseller. Chris, please ask your question. Please unmute yourself, Chris.
Oh.
Okay, let's move on. Do we have any other questions from online? Oh, yes. Okay, we have a question from MF, Andrea Pera.
Andrea, good morning. A question for Mr. Liang. I'm Andrea Pira, journalist from Italian newspaper MF. I would like to know some concrete example of what Huawei is doing to achieve sustainability in Europe and help in developing the the goals that the European Union have about improving the sustainability? Thanks.
这个问题是提给梁博的。我是来自于 MF 的记者，叫 Andrea。我想请您举一些具体的例子，就是关于华为目前在做的这个工作是如何支持欧洲的可持续发展，是如何支持欧盟制定的可持续发展方面的目标的。
欧盟在可持续发展目标上面，应该说有非常清晰的这种愿景和计划。那么一方面在绿色环保包括在数字战略等领域。
European Union has developed very clear plans for sustainable development, guided by a very clear vision, be it greenness or environmental protection. There are very clear visions and plans spelled out.
在欧盟的可持续发展当中，特别是也提到了。数字素质和数字的技能需要让更多的欧洲人能具有这种数字方面的技能。
In the European Sustainable Development Plan, we see there are focuses related to digital literacy and digital skills. It calls on more efforts to develop more talent equipped with digital skills and a high level of digital literacy.
那我就想从2个方面来谈一下我们在欧洲可持续发展方面做出的贡献。那我想特别是在这种刚才提到的这个数字技能包括这种数字人才的发展方面，那我们从2011年在整个欧洲我们开展这个未来种子计划从2011年到现在将近10年的时间。我们跟很多大学一些机构合作，那有将近2700多名欧洲的学员，那参加了这个参加了未来种子计划。通过这样的线上的这种交流，实地的这样的一些培训考察，那么使得这些人员能够更好地理解 ICT 技术、数字技术，从而也具备了一定的 ICT 技能。在这个学习当中和工作当中能够更好的应用。
I would like to elaborate our contribution to Europe in terms of sustainable development. With regards to digital skills and digital talent, actually from 2011 onwards, Huawei has been conducting a program called Seeds for the Future in Europe. So it's been 10 years since we first initiated this program. We have been working with universities and organizations, and approximately 27,000 European students have joined our Seeds for the Future program, and they have increased their ICT skills through online exchanges, training, as well as field trips. They have been upskilled in terms of ICT technologies, especially the digital ones, and then they're able to practice what they have learned in this program in their daily works and their daily work and lives.
那我们在今天我们也发布了我们未来种子计划2.0的计划我们也希望在未来跟欧洲更多的机构、学校企业能够开展这样的数字人才的这种培养和培训，使能更多的人员能够具备这种数字的这种技能。
Today, we have just announced our Seeds for the Future 2.0 program. We hope to further cooperate with more organizations, universities, and companies. We would like to join efforts in developing digital talent through enablement and training sessions so that more people can be equipped with a digital know-how.
那第2个方面就是我们华为，我们通过我们自身的一些 ICT 的产品，不管我们是无线、有线这个计算再包括我们官网了等等这样的一些华为的一些产品，在跟欧洲的运营商合作。通过我们的一些，包括我们这些数字能源站点的这一些解决方案，来降低 ICT 产品的这种能耗，同时从整个网络的层面来提升整个网络的运营效率，来降低能耗，减少碳排放。
while at the same time, Huawei is working with European telecom operators to try and drive down energy consumption, carbon emission, and improve their operational efficiency. Specifically, Huawei has been providing environmentally friendly products in terms of the wireless solutions, wired networks, computing, optical solutions, as well as digital power solutions. All of these are provided for the telecom operators to help them reduce energy consumption, carbon emission, and improve their efficiency.
那刚才我的同事也介绍了，那在未来华为公司的产品。到2025年，相对2019年，我们的能源效率要提升2.7倍。那就是说，我们也希望未来能够跟更多的欧洲的运营商合作，通过我们的产品以及我们在网络的规划设计方面的经验，跟运营商和一些企业，我们的数字化解决方案，跟很多企业垂直行业的一些企业合作，能够帮助在数字转型、绿色发展以及可持续发展方面能够加强合作，能够带来更多的价值。
As my colleague pointed out, that Huawei aims to achieve 2.7 times more energy efficient products by 2025 compared to that in 2019. We look forward to further cooperation with the European telecom operators by providing them with the right suite of products and solutions. We would like to leverage our experience in network planning and design and help organizations with digital transformation. We would like to provide the right set of digital solutions so that they can achieve sustainable development, and we make our fair share of contribution in this process.
那么华为我们在欧洲运营超过20年，我们在欧洲为欧洲，我们也希望在未来的这种合作当中，能够双方真正开放合作共赢，也通过华为的一些解决方案。包括我们在数字能源方面的一些解决方案，能够更好的在绿色环保、数字战略以及人员技能提升方面开展合作。谢谢。
Huawei has been operating in Europe for over 20 years. In Europe, for Europe has been our strategy in Europe. Moving into the future, we continue to uphold the principle of open collaboration and shared success. We would like to continue to provide our solutions, including the digital power solutions, so that we can contribute to environmental protection, the achievement of digital strategy, and the development of digital skills in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Liang. Now we will return to the floor for some questions. Thank you. Can we have a microphone for the gentleman in the blue, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm John Bold. I'm an independent transformation consultant here in Shenzhen. And I have a question for Mr. Paul Dickinson. You mentioned that Huawei is on the A list for the CDP. Can you explain what the A list entails and also what progress other Chinese companies are making? And then the second part of my question is, given that 80% of the global population is in Asia and Africa, what is the next level of collaboration that's required to bring on the next generation of sustainable solutions?
我的名字叫 John Bold， 我是在深圳工作的一个独立的转型咨询顾问。那这个问题呢是想请问来自 CDP 的Paul Dickinson 先生，您提到了华为在 CDP 的这个评级里面是达到了 A 级的这个评级，请您详细的解释一下这个A 级这个评级它具体的内容是什么？那么其他的中国公司在这一个榜单上面都是什么样的一个情况？由于我们都知道世界80%的人口其实都是生活在亚洲和非洲，所以在未来需要什么样的合作才可以开发出下一代我们所需要的可持续方案？请问 CDP 对这个有什么看法？
Well, thank you very much for the question. And I would say that the progress of companies in China is very significant. There are, in fact, 11 A-list companies, and that shows that large companies in China are recognizing that there is significant economic advantage that runs alongside environmental performance. And I'm just going to give a few indications of what the A-list development means. It means changing business strategy to focus on producing lower carbon or zero carbon solutions, from video communication, which could cut global emissions by 10% or more, through to laying the internet on top of the energy infrastructure of the world. On the second question about Asia and Africa, it is often described as an opportunity to leapfrog, to jump over older technologies. It may be that having so many cars to move people when in fact they can communicate in this way is a disadvantage. So all emerging economies need to consider the balance between their investment in physical transport, for example, and the fiber optic networks that will allow us to conduct our economy with less unnecessary business travel. And beyond that, I think the digitization and dematerialization of economies, as discussed earlier, will be critical to sustainable development.
谢谢您的问题。首先呢，中国的企业其实在这个方面取得了非常大的进步。总共在这个 A 级评级里面有11家都是中国的企业。可以看到，中国的大企业现在已经充分的认识到了，就如果他们在环境上面的这个表现更好的话，也会带来经济上的收益。让我来解释一下这个就是 A 级的这样的一个评级，它具体的一些含义。也就是说，这家公司已经开始调整自己的业务策略，然后在自己的解决方案里面已经实现了低碳排放或者零碳排放，这就是我们在这个 A 级评级里面会考虑的因素。举个例子，他们可能是通过进行更多的视频会议的沟通，减少了这种就是物理出行，然后进而减少了这个碳排放。通过我们这个分析，通过视频沟通的话是可以减少这10%的碳排放的。也就是说，在他们的战略考量的这个时候，会把互联网和这个能源基础设施叠加在一起，综合去考虑。那么关于您问的后面一个问题，就是说这个人口聚集在这个亚洲跟非洲，其实这个可以是对这一些地区的一个跨越式发展的机会。跨越式发展说的就是说，他们从一个老的技术直接跨越到当前的这个代际，升级到更新一级的技术。那么如果他们是走就是靠发展越来越多的这个汽车，然后通过这种方式来发展自己的交通的话，会是这一些发展中经济体的一个劣势。所以所谓的跨越式发展机会，就是说他们要去思考，如何去平衡对于两种的这个不同的这个业态投资，一种是这个物理的基础设施这种运输交通工具，一种是光纤网络，要做好这两方面的平衡性的投资，以便呢在他们这个经济发展活动过程当中呢，尽可能减少不必要的这种实际的物理的差旅。所以这个其实也契合了我之前有谈到一个观点，就是数字化发展啊，这种去物理世界化的发展，它也是可以推动可持续发展目标实现的。
Thank you, Paul. Do we have any more questions from the floor, please? Okay, can we have a microphone for the lady? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lily Wang. I'm from a local university in Shenzhen, Southern University of Science and Technology. I have a question for Mr. Dominic Wari, sorry for pronunciation. In the end of your talk, you mentioned Uplink, the digital platform that WEF launched earlier last year. I think this is to some extent to address the collaboration issue because the transition towards sustainability requires the collaboration of different sectors, different places. I wonder how Uplink works for that end, and also how local players like companies like Huawei and research institutes like my university can be part of Uplink. Thank you.
这个问题呢是提给世界经济论坛常务董事 Dominic Warry 先生。我是王丽丽，是来自于深圳一所本地大学南科大。那么这个问题就是关于您在讲话的翻译当中提到的 Uplink 这个数字平台，这是世界经济论坛去年初发布的一个平台，似乎是为了解决合作的问题。那如果我们要成功转型，实现可持续发展，那必不可少的就是各行各业以及各地区的合作。想请问 Uplink 这个平台在这方面起到了什么作用，有什么进展？那么像华为这样的公司，以及我所在的这个高校这个研究型大学，在这方面又可以起到什么样的作用？
Well, thank you very much for the question. Dominic is fine as my name. My middle name, Kelishnath, is even more complicated than my surname, so Dominic is fine. Thank you very much. Uplink was created with colleagues in the technology community and also co-launched with the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohammed, a few years ago for the very purpose that you just described in your question. And that was very much to connect together those who are facing big problems in delivering on sustainable development, friends and colleagues at the IUCN who have such excellent information about the challenges that we face, friends and colleagues who are helping industries to transition to net zero like CDP or others. They can see the big problems, and then out there are many young people who have got great solutions but can't quite connect to those in power or influence or with money or investment or with networks to turn their ideas into large-scale solutions. So that link upward is what Uplink is about. It enables hundreds of thousands of people out there who might be watching this discussion who are thinking, oh, I have a really good idea. If only I could get in touch with the chairman of Huawei. If only I could get in touch with the chairman of CDP. If only I could find the DG of IUCN and explain what I can do and scale the technology. That's what the platform does. We've run a number of challenges on Uplink to test it out, including, for example, in the ocean space. Because of the pandemic, unfortunately, the summit on oceans, the SDG 14, couldn't take place. So we helped through virtual technology to have a virtual ocean summit with the special envoy and lots of specialists and scientists and those in the industrial community working on shipping and all sorts of things. And there are amazing solutions that came through from citizen scientists in Mauritius through to people with technologies for collecting plastic, all sorts of things. And in fact, some of them were so exciting that Prime Minister Solberg of Norway, who was watching this, got in touch, connected people up. The mayor of Jakarta got in touch with some innovators over in Myanmar to take their work forward. So these connections were coming through Uplink. Universities are key to this, and we would be delighted to reach out to you who asked the question and involve you in the Uplink community. There are over 170,000 users now on Uplink. It's growing rapidly. There are 40,000 ideas coming through. We're in great discussions with our colleagues at Huawei, and I thank you for that, about engaging in exactly the Tech for Tomorrow work and how we can connect together the solution set that Huawei has. I would close by saying this. We know that we face so many big challenges with the SDGs by 2030, and we know that the impact of the terrible pandemic has meant that there is less public money available to provide solutions. This overseas official development assistance is under a little bit of pressure. We know that lots of young people are looking to create innovative, purpose-driven companies and B Corps and things that can employ people and create revenue and create new technology and innovation. So this whole exercise is about innovation, job creation, new ideas, new solutions, and moving the whole world away from a dependency perhaps on aid and handouts, and in fact creating a whole new wave of entrepreneurs through technology to help meet the SDGs. So please do get in touch through our colleagues at Huawei, and we can connect you in and upward to Uplink. Thank you.
其实叫我 Dominic 就可以了。虽然您觉得可能我的姓很难读，但其实我的中间名更难读，所以直接叫我 Dominic 就可以了。Uplink 呢，其实它就是一个要将要将技术和一些想法融合在一起，解决我们当前面临的一些问题的这么一个平台。其实就正如你的这个问题当中所描述的那样，它其实是起到一个连接作用的一个平台。我们现在面临着这些可持续发展的问题，然后保护自然的问题，像刚才 IUCN 所描述的，他们对于我们当前全球面临的这些自然挑战是非常清楚的描述的，也非常准确。CDP 也是，他讲到了我们关于要实现净零排放方面的挑战，这些都是我们看得非常清楚的。而另外一方面，年轻人他们有很多的想法，他们可能已经找到了一些问题的解决方案，但是他们缺乏的是什么？他们可能缺乏的就是不认识有钱、有权、有财、有人脉的这些人。因此我们可以通过这个平台，就是把有想法的年轻人和这些有影响力、有资源的这个圈子把它联系起来。所以我们取名为 Uplink， 就是向上连接，将这个有创意的人把它和这些有影响力的人连接在一起。它的受众呢，可能就是今天在观看我们这个论坛的几十万的这个观众，他们可能会有想法，但是可惜的是，他们未必认识华为的董事长，他们会觉得，如果我认识华为董事长就好了，如果我认识 CDP 的董事长就好了，如果我认识 IUCN 的总干事，那得多好呀，这样我的想法就有人支持了。我们这个平台其实就起到这么一个作用，去落地，去扩展这个项目。我们当前也有了收集到了很多的一些想法以及一些实践，比方说海洋保护方面其实很遗憾，因为疫情SDG 14这个海洋峰会呢未能如期召开。那我们希望是把它转到线上的一个形式，像特使专家、科学家还有行业代表都参与到我们这个线上的峰会当中来，一起去讨论解决方案。其实这个解决方案的贡献者既包括普通的老百姓，也包括科学家，他们进行了很多的讨论，既包括了毛里求斯的这个生态保护，也包括了他们对于这个塑料回收利用的想法。那么从中呢，我们甚至还收到了，比如说挪威首相的一个联络，然后把他的一个诉求和有创意的一些创新者，包括雅加达呀等的这些创新者连接了起来。那高校在其中其实也扮演非常关键的角色。正如您所问的这个，我们也特别需要高校参与到我们 Uplink 项目当中来。我们现在已经收到了超过4万个这种创新的想法，那么所以呢，我们会去把这些想法和企业，比方说华为这样的企业去联系起来。其实华为也讲得很好，关于这种面向未来的技术和解决方案，必不可少的就是企业的参与。那么最后呢，我想再总结一下我的观点。其实我们现在都清楚当前面临的非常急迫的挑战，就是我们所定义的2030 SDG 相关的这些目标的挑战。那么由于疫情，我们不得不面对的现实就是公共财政资源是不足的，因为要去抗击疫情，所以自然的在这个环保方面，它就不能获得那么多的公共财政支持。我们也能看到，像在国际这种官方援助上，现在也是备受资金的压力。而很多的年轻人，他们都有创新的想法，他们都是有使命感的，希望能够建立能够有所作为、有使命感的企业。那他们的目标呢，就是通过创业去增加就业机会，去可以通过创新和技术改变这个社会。那么我们 Uplink 就是可以在这方面将创新者和企业联系起来。一方面是促进创新，增加就业。然后让他们的新想法落地，开发出创新的解决方案，同时改变过去的一种对于创业者支持的模式，就是这种施舍型的模式。我们现在通过 Uplink 希望能够改变，就是更好的把创业企业家和这个就是资方联系起来。那么像华为这样的企业可以更多的参与进来。谢谢。
Thank you, Dominic. Now we will move back online for our final 2 questions. Next up, we have Chris from Arabian Reseller, who's back with us. Chris, please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Fernando, and I'm the editor of Arabian Reseller. I have this question for Mr. Tao Jingwen. As a company, what sort of sustainable technology implementations has Huawei carried out in the Middle East region? And what do you think future fit tech leaders should make sustainability a top priority?
我叫 Chris，是来自于 Arabian Reseller。这个问题是想请问陶景文先生，请问华为在中东地区实施了哪些可持续发展的技术？那为什么未来的技术领袖应该将可持续发展作为一个优先事项？
好，非常感谢哈。首先呢，我在这里还是非常感谢我们中东地区的广大的客户。还有媒体朋友对华为的信任和关注，啊，我们在中东已经存在也是20多年了，啊，我们一直是贯彻着是在本地为本地，啊，我们长期以来一直是坚持以客户为中心，为客户创造价值，所以我们在中东呢，其实在为中东的可持续发展呢，做了很多的这个贡献，也感谢很多客户的认可，比如说我们2018年，就获得了沙特哈利德。国王的这个企业社会责任竞争力奖的企业是作为唯一的，是吧？这个企业获得了这个国王颁发的这个企业社会责任和竞争领域的最高的国家级荣誉的奖项，也就证明了在中东呢，我们的客户呢对华为的这个对当地的可持续发展所做出的一些贡献，是吧？那其实我们在中东的可持续发展呢。其实我刚才讲了，我们的华为的可持续发展是有4个战略的，不论是在数字包容，维护网络稳定维护网络和稳定安全可信，以及绿色环保，以及这个未来的这个和谐商业生态方面，我们在中东呢都有大量的这个实践，比如说我们的这个无线通讯，对吧？给很多的中东的这个原来过去没有服务的，是吧？都提供了相应的服务。
Thank you for the question. To start with, I would like to express special thanks to our customers and the media journalists in the Middle East. Thank you for your trust and attention. We have been operating in the Middle East region for over 20 years. Middle East is also our strategy. And we have always been holding on to customer centricity, and we always insist on providing value for our customers. We have made active contributions to the region, and it's been highly recognized. For example, in 2018, Huawei has been awarded as the most competitive CSR company in Saudi Arabia. It is a prize, a top-level national prize presented to a Huawei company by the king. And that is a testament to the recognition that Middle East region has paid to Huawei's contribution. At the same time, I would like to stress again our strategies on sustainability. There were actually 4 pillars: digital inclusiveness, security and trustworthiness, environmental protection, and healthy and harmonious environment. In Middle East, we have got a lot of practices. For example, we have provided wireless solutions to serve the unserved people.
然后我们在这个上面呢，让更多的人呢，可以这个让科技呢更有可获得性，这是我们做的第一个方面的这个技术的应用。第二个方面呢，就是在中东的若干次的包括战争，一些灾难的情况下。华为都运用了技术，包括我们的人员，去保证网络的稳定运行。我们在这个方面呢，也得到了广大的客户的信任和政府的这个信任和支持。再一个，我们为未来培养了，中东培养了大量的这个未来的这个，我们也实施了未来的种子计划，培养了大量的这个 ICT 的人员。当然，在这里我们也建设了中东地区，比如说我们在沙特。在沙特政府发布2030战略愿景的基础上，我们也建设了全中东最大的一个太阳能光伏的电站，叫萨卡卡电站光伏电站，可以这个为超过45000家的家庭提供能源的服务，每年可以减少碳排放超过43万吨，所以我觉得我们是在全方位的这个。为中东的可持续发展贡献着我们一个科技企业的力量。
To sum it up, the first point is about improving the availability of technology, and the second point is about how we continue to offer and to ensure network stability despite of wars and natural disasters in the Middle East region. Such efforts have been highly recognized by the customers and the local governments. While at the same time, we have helped the Middle East region develop ICT talent. Seeds for the Future is also an initiative that we have implemented in the Middle East. One more point is Huawei has helped develop solar projects in Saudi Arabia, which is a project under its 2030 strategy and vision. And this project can help provide energy for 45,000 households. And this can potentially help reduce carbon emissions by 430,000 tons. All of these are our contributions in the Middle East.
最后一点就是，我们认为呢，一个未来的企业的领导人应该把可持续发展作为一个企业的优先事项，至少应该跟一个企业的商业价值发展的是并重的，要融入企业的 DNA 啊，这是我作为华为的这个可持续发展观啊，我的一个理解。我觉得我们要坚持从业务战略入手，因为坚持不懈的来推动。 这个可持续发展，就像这个 DNA 的双链是相辅相成的。我觉得一个企业的可持续发展跟商业价值是相辅相成的。因为我们相信 ICT 的技术创新可以为人类社会所面临的问题带来新的解决方案，可以让人们的生活更美好，让我们的工作更有效率，让我们的商业更加智能，让我们所期待的万物互联的智能世界。 更加快速的到来，谢谢大家。
As for the last question, I believe it's important for the future leaders to regard sustainability as a top priority. At least the future leaders should regard this as important as their business goals. It should be part of the corporate DNA. This is my take on this as the Chief Sustainability Officer of Huawei. I think that it's essential for the future leaders to incorporate sustainability in their business strategy because the two pillars are actually complementary to each other. We all recognize the importance of ICT technology and the potential solutions for the challenges facing all humanity. ICT technology plays a vital role in coming up solutions to improve our lives, to improve the working efficiency, to make to realize smarter commerce, and with ICT solutions, we can potentially usher into the all things connected intelligent sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Mr. Tao. For our last and final question to Afrique Media, Celeste, please go ahead and ask your question. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, I'm Celeste Capen. I represent Afrique Media, so thank you for this opportunity. I have a question today. What is Huawei contribution and concrete results in Africa on these issues?
The question is addressed to...
Sorry?
The question is for which spokesperson?
It's for Huawei.
我是一个来自于 Africa Media 的媒体，叫 Celeste。这个问题就是问华为发言人的，没有指定是哪一位。那想请问一下，在这个具体的可持续发展环保领域有哪一些解决方案？有哪些技术？
那我想在可持续发展这个领域，那么我们作为 ICT 技术这一块，首先我们使得自身的产品。 华为自身的这种 ICT 产品，在降低能耗减少碳排放上面，那要有一些通过一些技术的手段来做到。比如说，我们说在整个 ICT 领域，我们一直需要用最少的能量来传输、处理、存储更多的信息，那这就是我们一直的追求。所以从这么多年整个技术的发展来看，那我们整个每比特的单位能耗是一直在下降的。
We have had ICT technologies to help reduce energy consumption and carbon emission. It has always been our pursuit to try and minimize the power needed to transmit, process, and store data. And we keep decreasing the power consumption per bit.
那么另外一个方面，我们就说用一些数字化的技术，包括我们现在提到的5G、语音、人工智能等等这些技术，帮助各个行业能够更高效的运行能够更少的使用能量来产生更多的生产。所以在这方面，我们通过这种这些数字化的技术来帮助各个行业进行数字化转型。
And on the other hand, a whole suite of digital technologies such as 5G, cloud services, and artificial intelligence can contribute to the efficiency of vertical sectors. For example, by helping the vertical sectors to reduce energy consumption while at the same time improve their productivity. There are a whole suite of digital technologies that can facilitate and expedite digital transformation.
那我们想看，就是现在在疫情期间。其实，因为疫情带来了大家面对面交流的困难或者说到这个现场办公的困难。那么现在我们比如说远程的办公、远程的医疗、智慧的教育，那这样的一些解决方案，那都是我们现在能够帮助大家能够可持续发展。
During the pandemic, it's very difficult for us to meet face-to-face or work in a physical office. And that's where Huawei's solutions for teleworking, remote healthcare and education come into play.
那么另外，我们其实包括我们在非洲，其实应该有我们针对非洲市场，所以我们也有一些解决方案，比如包括我们的 Rural Star、Power Star 能够真正解决边远这个农村的一些少数人的这种通讯使得这一方面其实也是让所有人都能够享受普遍的通讯服务。
In Africa, Huawei's got solutions like Rural Star and Power Star. Such solutions make communication services accessible to those living in the remote rural areas. That has added to the inclusive communication services for those people.
包括我们在肯尼亚，其实我们跟少数方合作，包括我们的 Mobile Money， 这个在连接的基础上面享受通讯服务连接的基础上面，还能够更好的有一些金融服务包括这种通过手机账户转钱不需要来回的坐车跑的减少这样的一些通过交通现有的一些物理的交通工具通过数字化的方法来享受一些金融服务。
For example, we are working with Safari in Kenya, and we have partnered with a telecom operator on mobile money. All of these are not just about providing connectivity services, but also the infrastructure for financial services, so that the users can transfer money over their mobile phone. They don't have to physically travel to the branch to get services done. And such solutions can help reduce the physical transport, and people can resort to digital means and get the services.
那从华为来讲，我们也希望我们持续加强这种技术创新能够更好的支持绿色低碳和保护自然环境以及更高效的来使用一些数字化的技术。
Huawei will continue to innovate and better support a low carbon and more efficient society.
谢谢。
Thank you.
And on that note, that brings us to a close for today. I'm sure you'll all agree this has been an incredible afternoon with just some amazing content. I want to thank all of our speakers here today in the hall and online, and all of the media and our friends here for your active participation. Thank you for joining Huawei and IUCD Joint Forum, Tech and Sustainability. Everyone's included.
Okay,
I hope
thank
we'll
you.
see you again soon. Thank you. Thank you.
谢谢。
Thank you.